Chapter 2465. Oh heavens, 3 yes. From the manager's tone, Lung Ruoxue could tell that he was gloating over her misfortune. This made her slightly curious. As the fire of gossip burned in her heart, Lung Ruoxue could not hold it in any longer and asked directly, "Shopkeeper, are you gloating? The city lord's mansion has been destroyed, and the city lord is injured, but you seem to be quite happy." Even though Lung Ruoxue's voice was not loud, it still caused the innkeeper to break out in cold sweat. With a pale face, the innkeeper said in fear, "I didn't Sir, you can't wrong me like this. If the people of the city lord's mansion heard this, you'll be in deep trouble. You don't have any?" "Innkeeper, I don't lie in front of a wise person. I can see that you are very excited. Actually, when I first heard this news, I didn't hide it from you. I was also quite happy." Lung Ruoxue tried to entice him. Really, seeing that Lung Ruoxue did not seem to be lying and was an outsider, the manager was no longer afraid. It was as if he had met a soulmate as he began to pour out his grievances to Lung Ruoxue. "Your Excellency, to be honest, I detest the city lord of Chuan City. This guy was really not an ordinary black-hearted person. It's reasonable to say that although our shops belong to the Liu family, they don't completely belong to us. Aside from the amount of money we have to hand over to the family every year, the rest of the money belongs to us. With such motivation, we'll naturally do our best to run the shops, but this black-hearted city lord has ordered that after we hand over a certain amount of profits to the family, we have to give them half of the remaining profits. In this way, we'll naturally have nothing left of the profits we earn every year." The shopkeeper complained. "That's not all. In addition to giving half of the remaining profits to the black-hearted city lord, our city lord's daughter and the city lord's guards will also have to come here from time to time to take advantage of us. How could we dare to not give them? But if we give it to them, we'll have to live on air. AI." The innkeeper continued, sighing as he spoke. If it wasn't for the incident at the city lord's mansion, he would have been extremely pleased. In addition, Lung Ruoxue had taken the initiative to ask, so he really wouldn't have dared to pour out his grievances so easily. "Right, by the way, I do like to remind you that our city lord likes beautiful women, and his daughter likes beautiful men. So, sir, it's best if the beautiful men around you don't go out during the day. Otherwise, if the city lord's daughter encounters them, I'm afraid it'll be bad. As for the city lord, there is no need to worry about him now. In the future, when I meet a beautiful woman, I'm afraid I'll be powerless." The shopkeeper became more and more excited as he spoke, and the expression on his face became more and more vulgar. When Lung Ruoxue heard these words, she glanced at the expression on the manager's face and felt helpless. AI. This was probably a silent resistance by adding insult to injury after being oppressed for so long. "Thank you, manager. We will be more careful." After some thought, Lung Ruoxue finally spoke. In reality, she really wanted to tell the head that he had reminded them a little too late. They had already met the city lord's daughter yesterday, but Lung Ruoxue was afraid of scaring the shopkeeper, so she swallowed her words back into her stomach. Faced with the kind shopkeeper, Lung Ruoxue and the rest could only put on an act and agree to stay for a few days until the city gates were unsealed. When the shopkeeper heard this, he was immediately overjoyed. These people living here meant that his income would increase again. The innkeeper, who was in a good mood, sent his parents back to their room and left. Upon entering the room, Lung Ruoxue suddenly frowned. With a change of thought, an extremely disheveled man appeared in front of them. When a man came out, he wasn't mentally prepared at all, so he fell from the air and landed on his back. You're not gentle at all." Chung Mu got up from the ground awkwardly and complained in a low voice. "You want me to treat you gently?" Lung Ruoxue asked with a smile as she squinted her beautiful eyes. As soon as he said this, Chung Mu immediately felt a chill down his spine. He shrank his neck and waved his hands. No need. This is good. Ooh, this is too much of a bully." Chung Yu's face was full of tears. People without a backer were so sad. "You're tactful." Lung Ruoxue nodded her head in satisfaction and continued. "From now on, you'll be by the demon's side. He'll teach you a good lesson." "Why?" Hearing this, Chung Mu wailed. Woo! He didn't want to be by that violent man's side. He would be played to death. The other party's ecstatic kick had left a deep impression on him, so he was determined not to stay by that man's side. He still wanted to live for a few more years. Thanks. After thinking for a while, Chung Mu said with a charming face, Swear? They'll just stay by the great elder's side and do some odd jobs for him. They'll be satisfied. Of course, it would be even better if he was served well by the great elder, and the old man was happy to take him as a disciple or something. However, he only dared to think about it in his heart. He definitely did not dare to say it out loud in front of Lung Ruoxue. Otherwise, if this woman thought that he was trying to poach her, he would probably die without even knowing how he died. Oh, really? It's a pity that the great elder thinks you're too noisy and doesn't want you to disturb him. Lung Ruoxue threw out this fact calmly and immediately made Chung Mu feel dizzy. This was impossible. How could the great elder hate him? He had used all his strength to please that old man. Even if the old man was giving face to his ancestor, he shouldn't hate him, right? Chung Mu was puzzled. Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration. Jealousy. It was definitely jealousy. Lung Ruoxue must have been jealous of his good relationship with the first elder, so she had intentionally broken them up. That must be it. Chung Mu thought that he had found the reason why Lung Ruoxue did not allow him to be with the great elder. The way he looked at Lung Ruoxue instantly turned resentful. When Lung Ruoxue saw this, she could not help but feel embarrassed. What was this guy trying to do? Why did she feel that Chung Mu gave her the feeling that she was the evil person who had broken up a pair of lovebirds? Although Lung Ruoxue did not quite understand Chung Mu's current thoughts, she had two little secret agents. After Tsang and Qing Ju told Lung Ruoxue about Chung Mu's thoughts, Lung Ruoxue felt helpless. She really did not know what to say about Chung Mu's overthinking. At this time, she really regretted listening to the great elder's words yesterday and moving Chung Mu, who had been abandoned on the ground, into the mobile house. Thinking of this, she simply moved the great elder out of the house. The first elder was eating breakfast. He was holding a half-eaten snack in his hand, and his mouth was full. When he was suddenly moved out, he was stunned for a while before he realized that his image was not good. The first elder quickly swallowed the food in his mouth and said with a slight dissatisfaction, Girl, I'm eating. Can't you wait until I'm done eating? I can't wait. This guy wants to stay by your side and serve you. Lung Ruoxue pointed at Chung Mu, who had been looking at the first elder with love in his eyes ever since the first elder came out. When he saw Chung Mu's expression, the great elder felt disgusted. Then, he pulled away from Chung Mu with a look of disgust and said angrily, Girl, keep this guy away from me. Otherwise, don't blame me for not considering our friendship. When Lung Ruoxue heard this, she laughed in her heart. On the other hand, Chung Mu's face was ashen. Woo! How could the great elder hurt people like this? Didn't they get along well last night? Thinking back to last night, when Chung Mu had just woken up, the first person she saw was the great elder of the Armament Guild headquarters. At that time, the great elder was so gentle and considerate. Although the other party kept saying that he was taking care of him because of his ancestor, he was still quite grateful. Later, he suddenly remembered that this somewhat familiar old man in front of him was the great elder of the Craftsmen's Guild headquarters. He was overjoyed and stuck to the great elder's back like a dog, trying to please its master. In the beginning, didn't the great elder praise him for being polite and knowing how to respect the elderly? Why did you change your face so quickly? This person was definitely not the gentle great elder from yesterday. Right. This person was not the great elder. The great elder must have been switched by the bad person, Lung Ruoxue. The more Chung Mu thought about it, the more he felt that this was possible, because he really couldn't believe that someone could change their attitude so quickly and make him so confused. Chung Mu thought that he had always been very careful and had never offended the great elder. Therefore, he really felt that the great elder should not despise him so much. Sob. This would make him sad. At the thought of this, Chengmu immediately glared at Lung Ruoxue with a face full of hatred. He had wanted to roar at Lung Ruoxue with a high-spirited aura, but at that moment, the face of the terrifying man from yesterday suddenly appeared in his mind, causing his entire aura to wither before he could even do anything. However, he still bravely pounced towards Lung Ruoxue. Wu, Shuer, how can you treat me like this? You found me a fake great elder to fool me. Do you think I'm stupid? Cheng Yu's face was covered in tears. She cried and fell to the ground. Her hands were still hugging Lung Ruoxue's ankle tightly. This scene caused most of the people in the room to be dumbfounded. Lung Ruoxue was speechless, helpless, and helpless. As expected, the demon's face darkened. She really didn't learn. The evildoer was furious and walked straight in Cheng Yu's direction. Uncle Long and the others who were frightened saw this scene and unconsciously made way for the evildoer. Chapter 2466. To save people or to take lives. 1. Then everyone saw the evildoer lift one hand, and Chengmu, who was holding on to Lung Ruoxue's ankle, was lifted up. Then, with a light flick of his wrist, Chengmu, who was in his grasp, was thrown out of the window by the evildoer. A loud bang was heard. This action of lifting and throwing was as smooth as floating clouds and flowing water, leaving everyone dumbfounded. For a long while, everyone did not know what to say. However, at this sensitive moment, no one would stupidly speak up for Chengmu. Even the Armament Guild's chief elder, who had originally planned to take care of Chengmu for the sake of the Cheng clan head, had unsurprisingly shut his mouth. At first, the great elder had thought that if no one had come to teach that silly boy a lesson, he would have done it. He didn't want that silly boy to slaughter him like a fat sheep. However, before he had the chance to do so, someone had made the first move. In this way, for the sake of old man Cheng, he naturally couldn't hit him when he was down, although he really wanted to do so. Who asked that idiot to be so infuriating to actually say that he was a fake? The more the great elder thought about it, the angrier he got. Fortunately, Chengmu was not in front of him at this time. Otherwise, he could not guarantee that he would not be so violent. Seeing the evildoers sit down as if nothing had happened, everyone hurriedly sat down as well. They did not want to make him unhappy and throw them out of the window. Although it was only a third floor and they would not die from the fall, it was undoubtedly embarrassing. Thinking of this, everyone couldn't help but sympathize with Chengmu. You've lost all the face of the Cheng family. He didn't know how furious the head of the Cheng family would be when he found out about this. Everyone was secretly speculating. At this moment, they suddenly heard a knock on the door. Lung Ruoxue gave a signal to a beautiful peacock man to open the door. The moment the door opened, he saw Chengmu standing outside. Although Chengmu looked a little disheveled, she did not look like she had suffered much. However, Peacock Handsome Man was already surprised enough to see him. More importantly, the kind Peacock Handsome Man didn't know if he should let this guy in. Just as Peacock Handsome Man was hesitating, Chengmu pushed him away and made way for him. Then, he immediately ran into the room. The first thing he did when he entered the room was to seek protection from the Great Elder. However, the Great Elder turned his head away, obviously not wanting to talk to him. Seeing this, Chengmu pouted his lips in grievance, and tears welled up in his eyes. Before he could cry out, the demon had already stood up and grabbed his collar. With a light swing, Chengmu was thrown out of the window in a perfect arc hug. The first elder couldn't help but cover his face. How pitiful. The others also sympathized with Chengmu. She really did not have a good memory. She just did not know if Chengmu would come back shamelessly this time. However, before they could finish their thoughts, there was another knock on the door. Peacock Handsome Man, who had been standing at the door, opened the door without waiting for his master's instructions. The person standing outside the door was indeed Chengmu. However, this time, there were more bruises on his face. As expected, Chengmu was thrown out of the window by the demon in the same way. However, after a few minutes, Chengmu came up again as if nothing had happened. He was thick-skinned and naturally had more injuries on his body. Just like that, One of them kept on throwing people out while the other spared no effort to come back. After an unknown number of times, Lung Ruoxue and the rest were already numb from watching. In the end, Song could not stand it anymore and directly kicked Chung Mu far away. This time, it wasn't as simple as throwing Chung Mu out of the window. With Song's move, it was obviously impossible for Chung Mu to climb back easily. Just like that, everyone saw Chung Mu turn into a stream of light and finally become a small black dot, disappearing in the sky. Thanks, Ugg. Senior Song was really ruthless. Everyone quivered. Song was once again on the blacklist of the number one person not to be offended. Seeing this scene, Feng Luo's heart also reversed the position of Song and evildoer. At this time, he really felt that this cat was 100 times more ruthless than his master's man. Seeing everyone's fearful expressions, Cold gave evildoer a provocative look and then smiled. Human, you're cruel to yourself, but you have to be even more cruel to others. What you did just now was not treating the root of the problem at all. He's not afraid at all. How do you know he's not afraid? The demon narrowed his eyes. If you're afraid, will he dare to come back? Azure said matter-of-factly. Why wouldn't I? Are we going to kill him? The evildoer said indifferently. If that kid wasn't a member of the Chung family, he really wanted to kill that idiot? What a pity. There were too many people here, and it was inconvenient to do anything. Hearing this, Azure looked at the people present and felt a sense of powerlessness. There were so many people here, so it would not be easy to make a move. AI, the man and the beast looked at each other and felt a sense of appreciation for each other. Lung Ruoxue looked at their expressions and knew that these two fellows must be feeling regretful that they could not teach Chungmu a lesson. However, on account of the Chung family head, she naturally could not let these two willful fellows cut Chungmu off in a fit of anger. After all, other than being a little silly and unable to see the situation clearly, Chungmu did not seem to have done anything that would anger the heavens and cause resentment. At the thought of this, Lung Ruoxue quickly changed the topic and asked, "Are we going to stay here until the city gates are unsealed?" "Anything. I'm fine with anywhere." First Elder was the first to express his opinion. "We are the same," Dongfang Yu and the others quickly said. "Then just stay. I also want to see what kind of trouble the City Lord's mansion is going to cause." Lung Ruoxue asked with anticipation. However, to her disappointment, after staying in the inn for another 3 days, there was no movement from the City Lord's mansion. They only posted a notice for the reward. After learning about the bounty notice, Lung Ruoxue decided to take a trip to the Divine Master's residence in the name of accepting the bounty. Dongfang Yu and the others immediately expressed their desire to follow. Lung Ruoxue had no choice but to bring along many of her family members. However, this time, she had changed the appearance of Feng Luo and the beautiful Peacock Man. When they reached the ground floor, the innkeeper saw them coming down again and thought that they wanted to check out. He wanted to persuade them, but who knew that Lung Ruoxue would only tell him that they were planning to head to the City Lord's mansion to accept the reward. The shopkeeper's eyes immediately lit up when he heard this, and he said with joy, "Are there any alchemists among you?" "No, I didn't tea." Lung Ruoxue looked at the few people present and said. Hearing her answer, Uncle Long and the others, as well as the inn shopkeeper, were all speechless. However, they had different thoughts. What Uncle Long and the others were thinking was, "Girl, you're obviously one." Meanwhile, the inn manager was thinking, without an alchemist, how could he still be so confident? He really didn't know where these people got their confidence from. Chapter 2467. To save people or to take lives. 2. Although the inn manager's curiosity was piqued, he still kindly reminded, "Your Excellency, if you don't have an alchemist, I advise you not to accept the City Lord's bounty. If you don't handle it well, you might die." Is the City Lord a homicidal maniac? Lung Ruoxue blinked her beautiful eyes as she asked curiously. "No. What I mean is, if you can't cure the City Lord's illness, he might do something in a fit of anger. So, you'd better not accept this bounty and just stay in the inn. Mine belongs to the Liu family, so it's relatively safer." The inn manager advised earnestly. "But it's too boring to stay in the inn. We want to find something to do and take a trip to the city lord's mansion." Lung Ruoshua asked with anticipation. However, the inn manager who heard this was in a state of confusion. Bored? Looking for something? He still had to go to the city lord's mansion? These people were really bored to death. One had to know that this was a critical period. Most people couldn't wait to get as far away from the city lord's mansion as possible. How would there be anyone willing to take the initiative to court death? But these people really made him, a kind inn manager, powerless. After a long while, the inn manager did not know what to say. He could only stare at Lung Ruoshua and the rest. Finally, he made up his mind and put on an expression that said he was going to risk everything. He whispered to Lung Ruoshua and the rest, "My esteemed guests, to tell you the truth, the city lord's illness is not light. If you're not alchemists and can't cure his illness, he will definitely not leave you alive in a rage. You're my customers, and I really don't want to see you die. AI, you'd better listen to me and not go to the city lord's mansion to join the fun. I promise that if there's any news from the city lord's mansion, you'll be the first ones to know. Is that not enough?" The inn manager's words were extremely sincere. Even though it was suspicious that he was siding with an outsider, he was truly concerned about the safety of Lung Ruoshua and the others. He did not want anything to happen to the guests who were staying in his inn, as it would affect the reputation of his inn. With this thought in mind, the manager of the inn hoped to keep these people in the inn. At least, their lives would not be in danger. However, these people in front of him did not look like good people who knew their place. This fact made the manager particularly worried. As expected, when Lung Ruoshua heard the innkeeper's words, she only gave him a grateful look and said softly, "We're not afraid that the city lord of Chuan City will kill us. We're afraid that we won't be able to resist the urge to kill him. What do you think we should do?" These words made the inn manager dumbfounded. He was completely confused. While the inn manager was still in a daze, Lung Ruoshua led a group of people and left the inn. By the time the inn manager regained his senses, Lung Ruoshua and the others had already disappeared. Upon seeing this, the inn manager could only sigh helplessly. However, for some reason, when he recalled what Lung Ruoshua had said, he felt a tinge of joy in his heart. After quickly putting away his other thoughts, the inn manager looked around and went back to doing what he had to do as if nothing had happened. Lung Ruoshua and the rest left the inn and headed straight for the city lord's residence. Due to the incident at the city lord's residence a few days ago, the city gates had been heavily restricted, causing the streets to be almost deserted. Lung Ruoshua and the rest were unimpeded along the way. When they arrived at the city lord's residence's main gate and saw the undamaged tall walls, everyone could not help but think it seems like the city lord's residence did not suffer a huge loss. At this moment, they saw that there was a bounty notice posted on both sides of the door. Lung Ruoshua did not even think about it and immediately went to the designated location to register. The person in charge of the registration was a butler from the city lord's residence. After glancing at the unremarkable-looking Lung Ruoshua and the rest, the butler raised his head arrogantly and asked indifferently, "Who's an alchemist?" "Thanks, no one," Lung Ruoshua said with a smile, her attitude extremely good. When a certain butler heard this, he was instantly enraged. Fuck, if there were no alchemists, why would they come here to register? Was he kidding? A certain butler was very angry, and the consequences were very serious. The butler in charge of registration did not say anything and immediately called for the guards. He pointed at Lung Ruoshua and the rest and said, "Arrest these people who are here to cause trouble." The moment the vicious guards heard this, they were ready to take action. Lung Ruoshua saw this and quickly stopped them. "Wait, why did they capture us? We're not here to cause trouble. You guys aren't alchemists, and you're not here to cause trouble. Could it be that you're really here to treat the city lord?" A certain butler shouted out a certainty. "We're really here to treat your city lord. We're not here to cause trouble." Lung Ruoshua vowed, "Oomph. Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? Do you think I'm that easy to fool?" A certain butler clearly didn't believe Lung Ruoshua's words at all. He looked at her with an even worse expression. Originally, the City Lord's mansion was in a troubled period. The villain who destroyed the City Lord's mansion was not caught, and these people wanted to cheat the City Lord's mansion of its money on the grounds of treatment. If this was not causing trouble, what was it? I'm not lying to you. I'm really here to treat your City Lord. You have to believe me. Besides, the bounty notice didn't say that only alchemists are allowed. Lung Ruoxue could not help but remind him. Hearing this, a certain steward began to think. The bounty they issued really didn't state that only alchemists could come. However, no matter how he looked at it, these people didn't seem to have any ability. Thinking this way, he said, "Since you're here to treat the City Lord, it'll give you a chance in accordance with the principle of fairness. However, because you're not alchemists, if you can't treat the City Lord, you can only leave your lives here. Understand?" "I understand. We understand." Lung Ruoxue nodded her head. Seeing that these people were still tactful, a certain butler gave a look to the guard. The guard understood and brought Lung Ruoxue and the rest into the City Lord's residence. The last time they came to the City Lord's mansion was at night, so they basically didn't have the chance to properly tour the City Lord's mansion. This time, although it was daytime, they were also unable to visit the City Lord's mansion. The City Lord's mansion was in a mess. They had thought that the City Lord's mansion didn't suffer too much damage. However, when they saw the ruins, they had to admit that only the outer wall of the mansion was barely visible. They couldn't even think about the inside. The City Lord's courtyard was the first to be renovated. However, only one room was renovated to allow the City Lord to recuperate. When Lung Ruoxue and the rest were brought here, they realized that the dilapidated courtyard was filled with people. Not only that, but those people seemed to be lining up. The guard who had led Lung Ruoxue and the others only said to them, "Let's line up here and wait." He left them behind and turned to leave. "Little girl, are the people in line here to treat the City Lord?" Uncle Long couldn't help but click his tongue when he saw the situation. How many alchemists did the City Lord's mansion find to treat the City Lord's illness? Or was the City Lord's illness too serious, and he was trying a last resort? Chapter 2468. To save people or to take lives. 3. Before Lung Ruoxue could even reply to Uncle Long, the person in front of them heard him and turned to Uncle Long. "You're right. We're all here to treat the City Lord's mansion. However, I don't know when it'll be our turn. Sigh. We'll have to wait." The person who spoke was so depressed that he kept sighing. "Are you all alchemists?" Uncle Long asked curiously. "Yup. Who would dare to come if they were not alchemists? However, this City Lord's attitude is quite big. This is the first time I've seen someone who has to queue up to see a pill master." The man complained. "You know he's arrogant, but you're still willing to come?" Uncle Long was very confused. Didn't they say that alchemists were very proud? They were willing to line up for such a long time? If it wasn't for the reward, do you think anyone would come? The man replied honestly. "That's true. I heard that the City Lord's mansion's rewards are pretty good." Uncle Long nodded seriously. "It's not bad, but I don't know if I have a chance to get it." The man became worried again as he spoke. Seeing him like this, Uncle Long didn't know how to comfort him. Moreover, the City Lord's courtyard was still relatively dilapidated, and there were many people lining up here, so Uncle Long couldn't find a spacious place to stand even if he wanted to. They were here to suffer. When he thought of this, Uncle Long could not help but look at Lung Ruoxue with a face full of hidden bitterness. He was starting to regret coming here to watch the show, because the current situation was clearly that he did not get to see the show, and instead, he was here to suffer. Just as Uncle Long was grumbling, a painful scream suddenly came from the room. Even Uncle Long, who had seen many things, was frightened by the terrifying sound. Some of the less powerful alchemists instantly turned pale. But fortunately, a considerable number of people were relatively calm. Perhaps it was because they had heard this kind of sound too many times, so they all acted as if nothing had happened and continued to chat with each other in groups of 2 or 3. "Little girl, are we still going to stay here?" Uncle Long didn't want to stay any longer. "Uncle Long, if you want to leave now, will they let you?" Lung Ruoxue said. Upon hearing this, Uncle Long became listless. When they came in, he had already said that if he couldn't be cured, he had to leave his life behind. Although he didn't care about such a threat, now was obviously not the time to expose his identity. AI, endure it. The depressed Uncle Long finally calmed down after consoling himself for a while. However, he didn't want to just stand there like the alchemists in line. After some thought, Uncle Long took out a recliner and a tent. He cleared out an empty space and set up the tent. Then, he lay down comfortably on the recliner. Of course, Uncle Long had cleared out the place for the reclining chairs and tent himself. Thus, although the alchemists present were envious and jealous of Uncle Long's actions, no one dared to criticize him. Uncle Long wasn't someone who didn't understand the ways of the world. He then took out some food and fruits to entertain the envious alchemists. When the alchemists saw that there was food, their eyes immediately lit up. It wasn't that they were hungry, but it was quite tiring to stand like this. If they could have some food to relax, they would definitely feel much more relaxed. Because of this, they didn't stand on ceremony with Uncle Long's warm hospitality. Soon, Uncle Long became friends with the alchemists in the queue and learned a lot of information about the city lord from them. Time passed quickly as Uncle Long and the other alchemists conversed happily. As the saying goes, those who feed will not benefit. Every alchemist who went into the city lord's room to treat the city lord would tell them about the city lord's condition after they came out. Of course, the painful howls continued to be heard. In the end, when Lung Ruoxue and the others finally got used to it, it was their turn to make an appearance. When Lung Ruoxue saw that it was her turn, she was about to bring the evildoer and the rest into her room. However, she was stopped by the head butler who had been standing guard in the city lord's room. The head butler sized up Lung Ruoxue and the rest before he asked, "Who's in charge of treating the city lord?" "I am," Lung Ruoxue said with a smile. "Then you're allowed to come in alone," the chief steward said with some disdain. He saw that these people's looks were really disappointing to the audience, so he naturally looked down on them. He didn't think that they could cure the city lord at all. However, they were currently treating the city lord's injuries as if they were a dead horse. As long as there was a glimmer of hope, they didn't want to let it go. After all, whether the city lord could recover or not was related to their future. "No, they're all my assistants. Without their help, I can't save your city lord by myself." Lung Ruoxue had a look that said, "Do as you see fit," as she spoke to the head butler. "Then what are you waiting for? Come in quickly." The head butler compromised. Thanks, Lung Ruoxue could not help but roll her eyes at the head butler when she heard him urging her. He thought to himself, if it wasn't for your insistent refusal to let them in, they would have already gone in. When they entered the room, Lung Ruoxue and the others were shocked to see the city lord of River City lying on the bed. Oh my God, was he still human? The city lord's entire body was festering, and he was beyond human shape. His body was also emitting a foul smell. Blood mixed with pus flowed down from the festering wounds. At this time, the city lord of River City was almost in a semi-conscious state. From time to time, he would groan in pain, which proved that he was still alive. Even though Lung Ruoxue and the rest were prepared that the city lord's injuries would not be light, they did not expect that the city lord's injuries would be much more serious than they had expected. No wonder so many alchemy masters were helpless against this. This injury was really not light. When Lung Ruoxue and the rest saw the city lord of Chuan City's injuries, they could not help but turn their gazes to the evildoer. However, the evildoer's face was calm as he allowed everyone to admire him. Upon seeing this, Lung Ruoxue could not help but ask, "Evildoer, what's with the injuries on his body?" She didn't believe that the city lord would be so seriously injured for no reason. After all, they didn't confront each other directly at that time. "It's nothing," the demon said with a faint smile. "I was just injured by my divine power." Lung Ruoxue finally understood. If she remembered correctly, the demonic god's divine power was corrosive. It was no wonder that this city lord's entire body was festering. However, he could only blame it on his bad luck. Lung Ruoxue would not sympathize with him. On the contrary, she even took the initiative to ask for the demon's opinion. "Should we save him?" "Whatever. If we save him, hell wish he was dead." The demon was quite calm when he said this. Lung Ruoxue was silent. So, should she save him or not? If she didn't save them, the other party would threaten her to leave her life behind. Although she wasn't afraid, their identities would be exposed. What if someone from the Liu family linked the injured city, Lord of Chuan City, to them? This place was not far from the Feng clan. Thinking about it, it was really troublesome. Lung Ruoxue was starting to regret joining in on the fun. Curiosity killed the cat, indeed, not without reason. Seeing Shui Heir's dilemma, the demon smiled and transmitted his voice, Shui, although the city lord of Chuan City isn't a good person, it's okay for us to do some good deeds occasionally. All right then, Lung Ruoxue agreed. She really did not know if what she was doing was considered a good deed. However, the evildoer himself had agreed to save her, so why was she still struggling? At the thought of this, Lung Ruoxue walked to the side of the bed and deliberately observed it in detail. Then, she asked the city lord about the cause of the illness. The head butler was eager to save Lung Ruoxue, so he answered all her questions. When Lung Ruoxue heard the head butler mention the cause of the illness, she knew that he had been answering many of her questions. After asking, Lung Ruoxue remained silent. The head butler looked at Lung Ruoxue with an anxious expression, waiting for her answer. Head butler, I'm not an alchemist, so I can only use my own secret technique to see if I can cure your city lord. So, you'd better not have too much hope. Lung Ruoxue reminded him with a serious expression. The head butler nodded repeatedly when he heard this. He knew that alchemists liked to say the ugly words before they treated people to prevent the patient's family members from making trouble when they couldn't cure the patient. He could understand this. As for Lung Ruoxue's claim that she was not an alchemist, it was automatically ignored by the head butler. In his eyes, as long as he could cure the city lord, who cared about the other party's identity. After obtaining the head butler's understanding, Lung Ruoxue smiled and took out a bunch of silver needles. Just as she was about to pick one up and insert it into the unlucky city lord's body, the head butler quickly stopped her. Wait, what was he doing? Is this murder? The head butler couldn't help but wipe the cold sweat from his forehead and asked. Looking at the cold and flashing silver light, he felt a chill down his back. It wasn't that he had never seen silver needles before, but wasn't the silver needle in this person's hand a little too thick? If the silver needle, which was at least as thick as an adult's little finger, were to pierce the city lord's body, would the city lord, who was already weak, still be able to live? Furthermore, the other party had even taken out a gun. It was obvious that his little heart was trembling with fear. Head butler, calm down. Lung Ruoxue threw a discontented look at the head butler. When the head butler heard this, he immediately expressed that he couldn't stay calm. Was this to save people or to save lives? If such a thick silver needle were to be inserted, the city lord's little life would probably be gone. This was no small matter. Seeing the head butler's firm objection, Lung Ruoxue could only patiently explain to him, Head butler, look at your city lord's injuries. Not a single piece of skin on his body is intact. If you want to cure him, you'll naturally have to use extreme methods. My silver needle technique is definitely the right cure. You have to believe me. Chapter 2469. I've missed you so much, 1. Even though Lung Ruoxue's words were said with great patience, the head butler of the city lord's residence still had a frown on his face. He looked very hesitant as he looked at the giant silver needle in Lung Ruoxue's hand, then at the city lord who was lying on the bed like a half-dead man. The head butler was in a dilemma. The head butler didn't know if he should believe the words of this ordinary woman in front of him. He kept feeling that this woman's words were so unreliable. Would the city lord be able to withstand such thick silver needles? Just as the head butler was hesitating and could not make up his mind, Lung Ruoxue was struck while the iron was hot. Head butler, look at your city lord's appearance. What are you afraid of? Even if I can't cure the city lord of Chuan City, the result will be worse than now. I suggest you give it a try. My silver needle technique is quite amazing. Really? The head butler looked at Lung Ruoxue with a doubtful expression and asked with uncertainty. I guarantee it's true. Lung Ruoxue vowed. Then let's try. The head butler was also at his wit's end. Hearing this, Lung Rawashua nodded her head in satisfaction. She then continued, "There's one more thing that I need your help with." "What is it?" the head butler asked curiously. "Looking at your city lord's current state, there's an 80% chance that he needs to change his blood. Hence, I can only trouble the head butler to help me find someone with healthy blood." Lung Rawashua said this very cautiously. However, before she could finish her sentence, she was interrupted by the head butler. "No problem, they'll go find them now," the head butler said impatiently. If the blood exchange could really cure the city lord, then what did it matter if 1 or 2 people were sacrificed? Head butler, not just anyone can do it. It has to be someone who is blood-related to City Lord Lu. Moreover, the closer the blood, the better. Lung Rawashua smiled as she reminded him. Hearing this, the head butler was stunned. What did this woman mean? Blood-related? And the closer, the better? It wasn't what he understood, was it? If that was the case, then wouldn't only the city lord's daughter be able to change the city lord's blood? When the head butler thought of this possibility, he couldn't help but feel a headache. Ever since the city lord's mansion was destroyed by an unknown person and the city lord fell ill, the city lord's daughter had moved to the inn for safety. If the city lord's daughter were to change the city lord's blood, I'm afraid that the young miss might not be willing. It could be said that the chief butler had watched Lu Rong grow up, so he was quite clear about his young lad's selfish character. So, he didn't need to think to know that the young lady would definitely not agree to this matter, even if the other party was her father. Moreover, something like changing blood sounded mysterious. If something happened to the young lady while she was changing the city lord's blood, he would not be able to explain it to the city lord. One had to know that the city lord usually doted on the young miss very much. Thinking of this, the head butler was conflicted again. Lung Rawashua could tell that he was hiding something from her. So she continued, "Head butler, think carefully about which is more important, the life of your city lord or the blood of the city lord's daughter." Of course, the city lord's life was more important. Was there need to think about this? As the saying goes, every emperor changes his courtiers. Without the city lord, they, as his subordinates, would naturally not have a good future. The city lord's daughter could forget about continuing to call the shots in Chuan City, even though this was obvious. However, when he thought about the need for Lu Rong's blood transfusion, he could not make up his mind. Thinks it would be fine if the Castellan recovered after the blood transfusion, but if he didn't, wouldn't Miss Lu Rong's sacrifice be in vain? I want to know, after the blood transfusion, will the person's life be in danger? After hesitating for a long time, the head butler could not help but ask. That's hard to say. Lung Rawashua laughed evilly. Why did you say it when it's not convenient? Such uncertainties made the head butler frown again. If he could, he really wanted to strangle this woman in front of him. She was really too hateful, didn't he? Head butler, what are you hesitating for? I'm not using your blood. At this time, Uncle Long, who didn't want to see the head butler's indecisiveness, couldn't help but interrupt. When the head butler heard this, he almost fainted. Fuck, it's easy for you to say that, but the person who's going to have her blood replaced is the city lord's daughter. Moreover, although the city lord had many women over the years, he only had Lu Rong as his only child. He usually doted on her to the point that he would grant all requests. If something happened to Miss Lu Rong because she was changing the city lord's blood, the city lord might be furious. For a moment, the head butler only thought that the city lord would be angry if Lu Rong was in trouble, but he didn't think that the city lord was lying in bed in a half-conscious state. Even if he wanted to be angry, could he be angry? And Lung Rawashua had precisely calculated this, which was why she wanted to draw some blood for Lu Rong. She dared to provoke her. If she didn't let Lu Rong know why the flowers were so red, how useless would she be? From the very beginning, she had wanted to plot against Lu Rong, but she had never found the right opportunity. The blood transfusion was only an idea that came to her mind on a whim. In this way, not only did he save the city lord, but he also punished Lu Rong. It was simply the best of both worlds. At the thought of this, Lung Rawashua smiled faintly and put on an expression that said she would not make things difficult for the head butler. She then suggested, "Head butler, I know it's hard for you to make the decision. Why don't you ask your city lord for his opinion?" This, looking at the half-unconscious city lord on the bed, the head butler didn't know if the city lord would understand. At this moment, a guard suddenly came to report that someone from the main family had arrived. The head butler's face turned pale when he heard that. How did the main family find out about this so quickly? The city gate had clearly been sealed off. This matter should not have spread out. The sudden arrival of the main family made the unprepared head butler anxious like an ant on a hot pan, and he kept running in circles on the ground. Lung Ruashua felt a little dizzy from his spinning. After sighing helplessly, she urged, "Head butler, your decision is final. You don't have time to waste. Don't say I didn't warn you, but if the Liu clan's main family sees your city lord in this state, it's hard to say if he can keep his position." The head butler knew that the other party's words were not without reason. After hesitating for a few seconds, a determined look suddenly flashed across his face. He then walked to the city lord's bed and whispered, "City lord, if I want to cure you, I need a direct relative to change your blood. If you agree, we'll send someone to find Miss Lu Rong." When he said this, the head butler's voice was very soft. The city lord, who was in a semi-conscious state, did not give any other reaction other than the slight twitching of his fingers. Lung Ruashua saw this and quickly said, "Your city lord has already tacitly agreed. Quickly go and find your city lord's daughter." Silent consent? The head butler was speechless. The other party actually dared to say such words? The city lord clearly didn't have any reaction. However, this was not the time to argue with the woman in front of him. At the same time, he did not hesitate and directly ordered the guard who had just passed him the news to bring Miss Lu Rong, who was living in the inn. Chapter 2470. "I've missed you so much, too." When the guard heard this, he couldn't help but widen his eyes and ask, "Head butler, what about the people from the main family? What's the arrangement?" Ugh. Only then did the head butler remember that he had actually forgotten about the representative sent by the main family. However, the city lord's current appearance could not be seen by the main family. Otherwise, he might not be able to keep his position. After some thought, the head butler whispered a few words to the guard, and the guard left with a troubled and conflicted expression. Not long after, Lu Rong, who did not know the truth, was brought in. When Lung Ruashua saw Lu Rong, she fixed her gaze on her, and Lu Rong was instantly scared out of her wits. Lu Rong shouted angrily, "Damn you, ugly freak! Why are you looking at me? If you dare to look at me again, don't blame me for not being polite." Had this guy forgotten about her? Lung Ruashua was speechless. Looking at Lu Rong's face, it was clear that she didn't remember who she was, and she didn't remember being locked up by her. This person's memory was really not ordinary. However, this was also good. In this way, Lu Rong would naturally not think that she was taking the opportunity to take revenge. In reality, it was excusable that Lu Rong did not recognize Lung Ruashua. For one thing, Lu Rong would only remember the beautiful man. Moreover, after the incident at the city lord's mansion, Lu Rong's mind had been in a state of tension. There was no beautiful man in front of her that could awaken her memory. So she had completely forgotten that she had once locked a group of people in prison. Facing Lu Rong's impoliteness, Lung Ruashua displayed a magnanimous expression. She then turned to the head butler, who had been frowning ever since Lu Rong was brought in, and said, "Head butler, tell the city lord's daughter what she needs to do." The head butler nodded and directly told Lu Rong that he needed her blood to treat the city lord's illness. Lu Rong's expression changed drastically when she heard this and immediately wanted to rush out of the room. However, at this time, the inside and outside of the room were tightly sealed off by the guards arranged by the head butler. Lu Rong could not escape even if she had wings. He had already expected Lu Rong's reaction, so he did not give her a chance to refuse. At this moment, 2 guards came forward and restrained Lu Rong. "How dare you? I'm the city lord's daughter, and you guys actually dare to treat me like this? Oof. When father wakes up, they'll definitely make him kill you all. Just you guys wait." Lu Rong shouted in anger. Her pretty face twisted in anger. However, the head butler wasn't afraid of her threats. He calmly said, "Miss Lu Rong, you've seen the city lord's current state. I hope you can take the big picture into consideration and sacrifice some blood for the city lord. It won't be in vain that the city lord dotes on you so much. What do you think?" Although the butler's words seemed to be a question, his tone was unquestionable and certain. However, Lu Rong didn't hear it at all and continued to shout angrily, "I have no problem with changing Father's blood, but you can't use my blood. Father loves me the most. If he knows how you treat me, he won't let you off. Miss Lu Rong, if it was possible, I wouldn't want to use your blood either. However, who asked you to be the closest blood relative to the city lord? Using other people's blood isn't as effective as yours." The head butler said helplessly. "Then shall we use mine?" Lu Rong was furious. "I can only use yours," the head butler explained patiently. However, Lung Ruoxue did not want to continue watching the two of them argue, so she gave the head butler a look. The head butler understood and glanced at the guard beside Lu Rong, who was restraining her. The guard then raised his arm and knocked Lu Rong out. Thanks upon seeing this, Lung Ruoxue smiled and said, "Head butler, you should have done this earlier. Why are you talking so much nonsense with her?" The head butler was silent for a moment. He thought to himself, that's the daughter of the city lord, not some random nobody. Unless it's a last resort, of course I can't use any extreme means. Of course, the head butler was smart enough not to say this out loud. He only looked at Lung Ruoxue expectantly, hoping that she would be able to treat the city lord as soon as possible. Seeing him like this, Lung Ruoxue didn't waste any more time. She ordered the guards to carry Lu Rong to the bed and placed her beside her father. Then, she took out the tools that Qing Ju had prepared for her. Oh, she didn't do things like bleeding often. Therefore, it shouldn't be a big problem for someone to lose their life if their skills weren't good, right? After some thought, Lung Ruoxue decided to say the ugly words again. After she patiently explained the possible accidents that might happen, the head butler's face twitched. He kept nodding his head to urge Lung Ruoxue to hurry up with the treatment. He even expressed that he was already mentally prepared. Tell her not to worry. In reality, if it wasn't for the fact that he was afraid of affecting Lung Ruoxue's treatment, he really wouldn't want to be so patient. However, he was well aware that now was definitely not the time to offend Lung Ruoxue. His city lord was still counting on her to make a last resort in a desperate situation. After Lung Ruoxue received the head butler's assurance, she immediately jubilantly inserted a silver needle the size of a pinky finger into the arm of the unconscious Lu Rong. When the head butler saw this, he quickly turned around and covered his face. It's really too terrifying, isn't it? The head butler's little heart couldn't help but tremble at the sight of such a thick silver needle. When he turned around, he was surprised to find that there was no blood coming out of Miss Lu Rong's hand, even though there was a thick silver needle in her hand. This fact surprised him. In an instant, the head butler turned into a curious baby as he stared at Lung Ruoxue's hands without blinking. Acupuncture. Inserting a tube. Not long after, the city lord's body was covered with spikes like a porcupine. Lu Rong's body was also pierced with 5 silver needles, each of which was connected to a transparent tube. The tube connected the city lord and Lu Rong's body, and bright red blood flowed from Lu Rong's body to the city lord's body through the tube. The head butler could not help but hold his breath when he saw this miraculous scene. He did not even dare to breathe loudly for fear of disturbing Lung Ruoxue's treatment of his city lord. In comparison, the demon and the rest were much calmer. While Lung Ruoxue was trying her best to treat the city lord of Chuan City, the extremely bored of them actually took out their poker cards and started playing Fight the Landlord. Of course, this Fight the Landlord was taught to them by Lung Ruoxue. Furthermore, they had only learned it in the past 2 days. The few of them had not completely lost their passion for playing cards. Now that they had free time, they were naturally not willing to let it go. When the head butler unintentionally turned around and saw this scene, his face immediately darkened. Fuck, what were these people doing? Don't you know that it's time to treat the city lord's illness? The head butler was very angry. These people were really too uncouth. However, evildoer and the rest did not care about the butler's feelings. They sincerely felt that they had already given him face by not making any noise during the fight with the landlord. It was because of this that they were very calm when faced with the butler's sharp eyes. Chapter 2471. I've missed you so much. 3. His calmness deeply provoked the head butler. At this moment, Lung Roshua glanced at the head butler, then suppressed her laughter and said, "Head butler, your city lord's illness is much better. I estimate that he should be able to fully recover in 2 or 3 days." Really? Upon hearing this, the head butler could not be bothered to be angry with the evildoer and the others. He quickly turned his gaze to the city lord and saw that the festering part of the city lord's body had already shown signs of healing. However, there was still a stinky pus flowing out from the holes where the silver needles were inserted. The bedsheet was already dirty from the mixture of pus and black-red blood. However, the head butler did not care whether the bedsheet was clean or not. All his thoughts were on the city lord. Only when the city lord's illness was cured would they, the people who depended on the city lord, have a good life. Thinking of this, he turned to look at Lu Rong, only to see that her face was as pale as snow. The chief butler couldn't help but worry. Will Miss Lu Rong be all right? Can you hold on until the city lord recovers? Hearing this, Lung Roashua started to pity Lu Rong. From the look on the head butler's face, she knew that he wasn't concerned about Lu Rong's life at all. He was mainly worried that Lu Rong wouldn't be able to hold on until the city lord of Chuan City recovered from his illness, delaying the city lord's recovery. AI, poor Lu Rong, who no one loved. Miss Lu is very healthy. She'll be fine. Lung Roashua said with a smile after sympathizing with Lu Rong for a while. That's good. When the head butler heard Lung Roashua's words, he was relieved. Head butler, City Lord Lu is fine now. We should take our leave. Lung Roashua continued. With that, she was prepared to leave with the evildoer and the rest. However, the head butler was not willing to let them go just like that. After all, in his heart, the city lord's illness had not fully recovered. The head butler thought for a moment and immediately said, "Everyone, don't be in a hurry to leave. You've saved the city lord, so our city lord mansion will definitely reward you handsomely. Take them to rest." When Lung Roashua saw the situation, she knew that she could forget about leaving today. She followed the guards summoned by the head butler calmly and left the city lord's room. The guard brought Lung Roashua and the others to the guest house that was only half repaired and told them that they would be staying here temporarily. Then, as if there were evil ghosts chasing after them, he immediately turned and left. We're City Lord Liu's saviors. They're letting us stay here? Uncle Long said in dissatisfaction as he looked at the broken guest house. Giving us a room to live in is already a high standard of treatment. Lung Roashua couldn't help but tease him as her beautiful eyes sized up the simple and crude guest courtyard. This guest courtyard was very small. The few of them standing in the courtyard took up almost half of the space in the guest courtyard. Moreover, to put it nicely, the guest courtyard was half repaired, but in fact there were only 2 rooms that were barely enough for people to live in. But he didn't even prepare a bed for them. This was the rhythm of making them set up tents. Just as Lung Roashua was at a loss for words, and Uncle Long and the others were feeling indignant, a familiar voice suddenly rang in everyone's ears. "I've finally found you." Lung Roashua and the rest turned their heads at the same time and happened to see the owner of the voice, Chung Mu, who had been kicked away by Tsam. At this moment, she looked as if she had found her team. Her eyes were filled with tears, and she was looking at them with endless resentment. The next moment, Chung Mu pounced towards Lung Roashua and the rest like a bird returning to its nest. "I've missed you so much," Chung Mu shouted. Then there was a loud thud, and Chung Mu fell to the ground in a sorry state. Originally, Chung Mu had planned to pounce on Lung Roashua. However, when he saw the evil man's sinister gaze from the corner of his eye, he immediately changed his direction and pounced on the seemingly kind Uncle Long, who knew that Uncle Long would dodge, causing Chung Mu to pounce on empty air. At the same time, Chung Mu felt his legs go soft. Then he was in a tragedy. Woo, Chung Mu, who felt embarrassed again, wailed and cried. Lung Ruoxue and the rest felt helpless at this sight. This Chung Mu, AI. Although Lung Ruoxue knew very well that Chung Mu had fallen because Tsang had done something to him, she did not expect Chung Mu to burst into tears. This guy was a member of the Chung family. Would the Chung family allow their descendants to be so disgraceful? Lung Ruoxue couldn't understand. If the Chung family found out about Chung Mu's current state, would he still have a good life in the Chung family? You guys are bullying me. Stop. I'm going to tell my brother. You're all bad guys. At this time, Chung Mu was crying and threatening her. When Lung Ruoxue heard this, she was completely speechless. What can you do to us if you tell your brother? Child, even if we tell your ancestor, that old man can't do anything to us, right? Thanks at this moment, Lung Ruoxue started to doubt Chung Mu's intelligence. However, seeing that Chung Mu seemed to be quite confident in her brother, Lung Ruoxue felt embarrassed to strike at his fragile glass heart. However, she really did not want to bother with Chung Mu. So, she turned around and pulled the evildoer into an empty room. Uncle Long and the others saw this and followed him in. The poor Chung Mu, who was crying like a pear blossom bathed in rain, was ignored by everyone in the blink of an eye. After Lung Ruoxue and the rest entered the room, Chung Mu immediately stopped crying. However, the gloominess in his heart only increased. Woo! He was already an adult. Didn't they see him? How could he do this to him? Oomph! He was definitely going to tell his brother. At the thought of this, Chung Mu got up from the ground and left in a sorry state. Seeing Chung Mu leave through the window, the demon glanced at Song, who was occupying Shue'er's arms, and mocked. Who was the one who said that kicking yourself would work? This was just an accident. Next time, it'll kick him further away. It withered. Do you still have a chance next time? The demon laughed evilly. At this time, Chung Mu's voice was heard by everyone again. Brother, it's here. I found them. This voice sounded very excited. When everyone heard it, they looked at each other. He really called for help. However, this helper was actually an acquaintance. Upon seeing the familiar faces, Lung Ruoxue and the rest took the initiative to walk out of the room. Is young Master Ching here to avenge Chung Mu? Glancing at Chung Xian, Lung Ruoxue said with a smile. When he heard this voice, Chung Xian quivered. He had heard from Chung Mu about Lung Ruoxue's disguise and had no doubt that the person he was talking to was not Lung Ruoxue. He was all too familiar with her tone, especially with his tone right now. It definitely meant that someone was going to be in trouble. The smart Chung Xian didn't want to be one of those unlucky fellows, so he immediately said, No, I heard that my old friend is also in Chuan City, so I'm here to see him. When Chung Xian said this, his eyes would occasionally sneak a glance at the evildoer standing beside Lung Ruoxue, as well as the snow-white cat in her arms. He was finally relieved when he saw the calm expressions on the two of them. Shue'er, long time no see. At this moment, Ning Haolon, who had come to look for Lung Ruoxue with Chung Xian, also greeted her with a smile. Lung Ruoxue nodded and could not help but ask curiously, Why are you in Chuan City? It's all because of this idiot. He was caught by Lu Rong and couldn't escape, so he sent me a voice transmission to ask for help. After giving Chung Mu a dagger's-like look, Chung Xian said with a face full of disappointment. As for Chung Mu, under Chung Xian's sinister and fierce gaze, she was as obedient as a little white rabbit. Her eyes were still red, and she did not dare to say a word of rebuttal. He's quite stupid. Lung Ruoxue glanced at Chung Mu and nodded in agreement. This time, Chung Mu felt even more grieved. He realized that he was wrong. You're wrong. Look at his brother's lackey appearance. Not to mention avenging him. It would be good enough if he didn't hand him over to the enemy to be slaughtered. Sob, why was he so miserable? As expected, just as Chung Mu thought of this, he heard Chung Xian looking at Lung Ruoxue with a fawning expression. Shue'er, this brat is idle all day and only knows how to stir up trouble. If he has offended you in any way, you must not be polite. No need to be soft-hearted. Brother, you're my brother. Hearing these words of betraying others, Chung Mu wanted to cry to death. This was really bullying. How could he do this? Cheng Mu couldn't help but look up at the sky and sigh. His heart was infinitely depressed. However, when Lung Ruoxue heard this, she only nodded her head lightly, indicating that she would not stand on ceremony. After that, they started to chat. Lung Ruoxue also found out from Cheng Xian why they had come to the city lord's residence. It turned out that the main Lu family had sent people to Chuan City not because they knew that something had happened to the city lord's estate, but because Cheng Xian and Ning Haolan had come to the Lu family together after Cheng Mu's arrest. When the Lu family saw that the young masters of the Cheng and Ning families had come to settle the score, they did not dare to ignore it and immediately sent an elder to Chuan City to handle the matter. Before they arrived in Chuan City, Cheng Xian and the others inadvertently met Cheng Mu, who had been kicked away by Tsang. After hearing Cheng Mu personally say that she had been caught and sent to prison, the Lu family elder immediately said that he would give Cheng Mu an explanation. Of course, Cheng Mu was not stupid enough to tell the elder of the Lu family about her escape from the prison. She only said that she had tried her best to escape from the prison. Later, when they arrived at Chuan City, they found out that the city was under strict security. That was when the Lu family elders found out that something had happened to the city lord's mansion. After learning about this, the Lu clan's elder temporarily split up with Cheng Xian and the others. Cheng Mu wanted to look for Lung Ruoxue and the others, so she found an excuse to stay in the inn where Lung Ruoxue and the others were staying. Naturally, she also found out from the inn's manager that Lung Ruoxue and the others had come to the city lord's mansion to save the city lord. Chapter 2472:2 Ants 1. When Cheng Mu heard the news from the inn manager, he was stunned for a long time. He could not figure out what Lung Ruoxue was trying to do. If he didn't remember wrongly, they couldn't escape responsibility for his injuries, right? He actually went to the city lord's mansion to treat someone's illness. Wasn't this sending sheep into the tiger's mouth? At that time, in his eyes, Lung Ruoxue was just a sheep. As a friend of Lung Ruoxue's, he naturally could not watch Lung Ruoxue and the others be in danger. Hence, when he found out about this matter, he strongly requested his brother to bring him to the city lord's residence to look for her. That was why the scene above had happened. In the city lord's mansion, Cheng Mu did not have to search for long before she found Lung Ruoxue and the rest. It was really easy to find, as there were many places in the city lord's mansion that were not hidden. However, never in his dreams did he expect that he would be ignored like that. This fact made him quite depressed. The brother that Empress called to support her was actually a traitor. This was definitely a heavy blow to Cheng Mu. Unfortunately, at this moment, Lung Ruoxue and the others were only focused on reminiscing about the past. No one paid attention to Cheng Mu's gloominess. By the time they realized it, Cheng Mu was already wishing she could hide in a corner and draw circles. You're all bad people. They're all bad people. They saw Cheng Mu crouching among the ruins and mumbling nonstop. When Lung Ruoxue and the rest heard this, they did not know whether to laugh or cry. Who are you talking about? Lung Ruoxue chuckled as she asked. Who else could it be? Of course, it's that hateful woman. When he heard someone talking to him, Cheng Mu did not even raise his head and answered reflexively. When he realized that something was wrong and raised his head, he saw Lung Ruoxue looking at him with a faint smile. Instantly, he was so frightened that he quivered. That evil woman? Me? Lung Ruoxue asked shamelessly with a smile. No, how could it be you? It was Lu Rong, right? It's that evil woman, Lu Rong. Cheng Muxio's heart was trembling, and she was so scared that she quickly said, "Are you going to see Lu Rong?" Lung Ruoxue suddenly asked when she heard him mention Lu Rong. Why are you looking at her? Cheng Mu blinked her eyes in confusion. If you don't watch it now, you might not be able to in the future. Lung Ruoxue laughed evilly. No way. Then I'll go take a look. Cheng Mu immediately perked up when she heard that. But when he saw City Lord Lu and Lu Rong, he was still shocked, even though he had already prepared for the worst. What's wrong with him? In City Lord Lu's room, Cheng Mu's hand trembled as he pointed at the father and daughter, whose bodies were covered with silver needles. He was so scared that he stuttered. Oh my God, was he still human? He did not know why, but he suddenly sympathized with the father and daughter. Looking at their situation, Chungmu really felt that compared to them, he seemed to be considered lucky. When he thought of this, he turned his head carefully to look at Lung Ruoxue, and he became much more well-behaved. These people were not to be offended. He had to be careful in the future. Chungmu went to Lung Ruoxue's side and asked with a smile, "Schwerer, can we go back now?" He didn't want to stay here any longer. This place was too terrifying. Go back. The head butler didn't allow us to go back, saying that they would only let us go when their city lord is well. More importantly, the city lord's mansion hasn't paid me for my treatment yet. That's why we can't leave now, Lung Ruoxue said calmly. Although her voice was neither too loud nor too soft, the head butler, who was being scolded not far away, could still hear her clearly. Instantly, the head butler could not help but burst into tears. Woo! If he had known that these people were old friends with the young masters of the Chung and Ning families, he would not have dared to force these people to stay in the city lord's mansion, even if he was beaten to death. Now, not only had he been exposed, but the main family had also charged him with the crime of not reporting the information. Thanks the unlucky chief butler, who thought that he could hide the matter flawlessly, now knew that his life in the family would not be easy in the future. In addition, there was the city lord. Even if he was cured, he was afraid that he would not be able to keep his position. As for the young lady, he did not know what would happen to her. However, just based on the fact that the young lady had dared to put the Chung family in prison, the Liu family would not let her off easily in order to give the Chung family an explanation. After thinking clearly about their crimes, the head butler could only plead guilty and try his best to admit his mistakes, hoping that the elders sent by the main family would spare him on account of his good attitude in confessing. Unfortunately, no matter how well he admitted to his crime and how clearly he confessed, the elders sent by the Liu clan did not intend to let him off easily. He could only blame it on his bad luck. After that, the elder of the Liu family apologized to Lung Ruoxue and made it clear that he would pay Lung Ruoxue back as soon as possible. Lung Ruoxue saw that this Liu clan's elder was rather sincere, so she did not make things difficult for him. She only told him to send a reward to the inn. Then she left the city lord's residence with the demon and the rest. After hearing some of Lung Ruoxue's glorious deed from her brother, Chungmu thought that he could see Lung Ruoxue show off her might and ruthlessly beat up the Liu family. Unfortunately, his wish did not come true, and he could not help but feel disappointed. When they returned to the inn, Chungmu immediately followed Lung Ruoxue and the rest into the room. She asked shamelessly, "You were just going to let the Liu family off like this? What else?" Lung Ruoxue looked at Chungmu in amusement. She thought to herself, did this guy think that I'm a violent person and want to start a massacre over a small matter? You should teach the Liu family a good lesson. Chungmu said matter-of-factly. Didn't I already teach him a lesson? Lung Ruoxue smiled as she reminded. That counts as one. Chungmu was a little speechless. Do you want me to destroy the Liu family? If that's the case, then everyone in the divine realm will treat me as a great devil. Lung Ruoxue said helplessly. Little brat, Schwerer knows what she's doing. Don't add to the trouble. At this moment, Cheng Xian, who could not stand it anymore, slapped Cheng Mu's head and scolded angrily. Brother, you actually hit me? Cheng Mu, who had been beaten up, looked at Cheng Xian with an aggrieved expression. Seeing this, Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but ask out of curiosity, are you guys really brothers? Why was there such a huge difference in their personalities? He's my uncle's son. When Cheng Xian heard Lung Ruoxue's question, he explained. When Lung Ruoxue heard this, she nodded her head to show that she understood. Schwerer, when you plan to leave Chuan City? Ning Haolan suddenly asked. It could happen at any time. Lung Ruoxue replied honestly. With these two young masters around, the Liu clan would not dare to stop them from leaving the city. Then I'll go with you, Ning Haolan said after some thought. I want to go with you. Cheng Xian quickly said, not to be outdone. You? Aren't you going to return to the Chung family? Lung Ruoxue was speechless. The young master of the Chung family was always loitering outside. If the old man from the Chung family knew about this, he would definitely have a bad opinion of her. Chapter 2473:2 Ants 2. Who knew that Chung Xian didn't take the Chung family seriously at all? He said indifferently, "Why should I go back? Do you want to see someone clamoring to replace me as the young master?" What? The moment Lung Ruoxue heard this, the fire of gossip was ignited once more. The others also looked at Chung Xian with curious expressions, hoping that he would answer their questions. Chung Xian looked at everyone's expression and helplessly said, "Can you guys not be so nosy? You're the one who gave us the chance to gossip. So, you have to tell us the truth." Lung Ruoxue laughed evilly. That's right. That's right." Uncle Long and the others also joined in the fun. "All right, he'll explain, all right. The Chung family isn't very peaceful at the moment. Someone is planning to replace me as the young master, but I don't know when their plan will be completed. I don't have the patience to play with them, so I ran away from home," Chung Xian said honestly. Although he was often caught by the old ancestor, now that he had run away from home and was almost a regular meal, the old ancestor was probably used to it. At least this time, he wasn't immediately summoned back as soon as he came out. Under such circumstances, shouldn't you be more at home and perform well? Lung Ruoxue reminded. TSK, who want to perform well. I don't really care about the position of the Chung family's young master, Chung Xian said nonchalantly. Ever since he got to know Lung Ruoxue and the rest, he suddenly realized that he was even more unwilling to be bound by that huge family. One must know that he yearned for a free life. You must be giving the head of the Chung family a headache, Lung Ruoxue said. Hearing this, Chung Xian only raised his head arrogantly, putting on a noble and cold look, and then changed the topic to what he had said before. When you leave, you must take me with you. Chung Xian was like a puppy that was afraid of being abandoned, as he pleaded. All right then. Lung Ruoxue had no choice but to agree. However, she thought to herself, if I bring you along, the Chung clan's head will definitely come to my place to arrest you. Hence, she really could not guarantee how long Chung Xian would stay with them. However, if she wanted to bring Chung Xian along, she might have to bring this idiot, Chung Mu. At the thought of this, Lung Ruoxue's gaze could not help but turn to Chung Mu. When Chung Mu saw this, he immediately went up to Lung Ruoxue and said in a fawning manner, You've brought my brother along. Of course, you can't leave me behind, right? What if I say that I'm wrong? Lung Ruoxue teased. You won't be so disloyal, right? Chung Yu's eyes dimmed, and tears slowly welled up in her eyes as she said pitifully. Seeing him in this state, Lung Ruoxue could not take it anymore and said, All right, stop acting pitiful. He'll bring you along, but you have to be obedient. I promise I'll listen to you, Chung Mu said obediently. Thanks, Lung Ruoxue nodded, letting him off the hook. Early the next morning, the Lu clan's elder immediately sent someone to deliver Lung Ruoxue's remuneration for treating City Lord Lu's illness. When she saw that the remuneration was actually almost double what she deserved, Lung Ruoxue could not help but sigh. This Lu clan's elder knew how to conduct himself. In addition, the Lu family's elder had also sent compensation to Chung Mu, allowing him to make a small fortune. The messenger also assured them that Lu Rong would be severely punished by the family, so they could rest assured. On the afternoon of the day they received their remuneration, Lung Ruoxue and the rest left Chuan City under the watchful eyes of the Lu clan's elders. As he watched Lung Ruoxue and the rest leave, the Lu clan elder heaved a long sigh of relief. He thought to himself, I finally sent these few away. That was close. After Lung Ruoxue and the rest left, they continued to head south along Chuan City. After walking for close to half a month, the group finally returned to the land of demons. When the beast that stayed behind in the land of evil demons learned that Lung Ruoxue and her group had returned safely, they were all overjoyed. They surrounded Lung Ruoxue and asked her all sorts of questions out of concern. When they learned that Lung Ruoxue and her group had won, they were so happy that they howled at the top of their lungs to show their excitement. Seeing this, Chung Mu was even more surprised. He had never expected Lung Ruoxue to have such a good relationship with the beasts of the land of demons. Such a harmonious relationship was almost impossible in his knowledge. However, he had actually seen it with his own eyes today. For a moment, his admiration for Lung Ruoxue was like a surging river, endless. After returning to the demonic land, Lung Ruoxue and the rest returned to their original appearances. When Chung Mu saw them, he was completely dumbfounded. No matter how stunning Lung Ruoxue was in the rumors, it was not as real as seeing her with his own eyes. After seeing Lung Ruoxue, he deeply felt that the women he had seen in the past who he thought were beautiful were not even worth showing off. However, he did not dare to have any improper thoughts about Lung Ruoxue. It was because the eyes of the demonic man beside her were too penetrating and too terrifying. Moreover, the demonic man's otherworldly beauty made him feel inferior. Sigh. A man actually looked like this. How were those women supposed to live? However, it was undeniable that the outstanding couple in front of him was a match made in heaven. After secretly observing them for a long time, Chung Mu really felt that if anyone dared to come and ruin their perfect couple, he would be the first to disagree. At this moment, he automatically ignored the extra-large light bulb cat in Lung Ruoxue's arms and turned to look at the devil's land with a curious expression, as if he was looking at a grand view garden. The beasts in the land of demons showed a high level of enthusiasm for Chung Mu's arrival. Every day, some beast would bring Chung Mu around to play. In just a few days, Chung Mu was so happy that she forgot about home. On a certain day, Lung Ruoxue, who was sitting in the garden and chatting with Uncle Long and the others, finally caught up with Chung Mu. She could not help but tease, "Chung Mu, it looks like you've been playing with your heart these few days." Hee hee. No, no way. When Chung Mu heard Lung Ruoxue's words, he immediately blushed. In reality, he was just as Lung Ruoxue had said. He was so happy that he had lost his sense of direction. However, he did not dare to let Lung Ruoxue and the others know about his thoughts. Otherwise, what if they were jealous and wanted to chase him away? He hadn't had enough of this place. Since you don't have it, then don't run around in the future. Cultivate well. Look at how weak you are. With your current strength, I'm afraid no one will believe you if you tell them that you're from the Chung family. Lung Ruoxue's beautiful face was filled with disdain. Don't. Sister, please let me go. I don't like to cultivate. When Chung Mu heard this, he immediately cried and begged. If he liked to cultivate, he would not have run away from home. Ugh. Back then, he had also run away from home like Chung Xian. However, he did not dare to say this in front of Lung Ruoxue. Otherwise, what if this person decided to send him home on a whim? There were good food and fun things here. He didn't want to go back to the Chung family's cage. I won't go back even if I'm killed. I don't keep idle people here. With your strength, you can't even compare to the beasts in the land of evil demons, and you're not as useful as them. You'll only be a waste of food if you stay here. If the ripple of fog comes to you one day, you'll just be cannon fodder. So, if you really don't want to cultivate for the sake of your safety, you'd better return to the Chung family. Lung Ruoxue sighed helplessly. Of course, Chung Xian had asked her to say this. Ever since Chung Mu had arrived at the Devil's Land, she had been like a wild horse that had lost its reins. She was nowhere to be seen. How could Chung Xian not be anxious? Chapter 2474:2 Ants 3. Not only that, but Chung Xian also asked her to give Chung Mu special training. Evildoer and Azure took the initiative to accept this task and planned to train him and the Peacock King together. Lung Ruoxue thought of the pitiful Peacock King who was locked up in some unknown place by the demon. She felt that it was not a bad idea to arrange for a companion to train with the Peacock King so that he would not be lonely. As such, she would not let Chung Mu pass the test so easily. When Chung Mu heard that Lung Ruoxue wanted to chase him away, he immediately looked at her pitifully, his eyes glistening with tears. However, Lung Ruoxue was unmoved. She only told him again and again, if he doesn't want to cultivate, send him back to the Chung family. In the end, Chung Mu had no choice but to compromise. As soon as Chung Mu agreed, the demon immediately moved Chung Mu into a small dark room. That room was the one he had locked up the Peacock King in. The Peacock King, who had been locked in the small black room for an unknown amount of time, immediately perked up when he sensed an unfamiliar aura. However, he immediately felt that something was wrong because he was too familiar with one of the auras. Woo, it's that guy, Master's man. After the Peacock King recognized this fact, he cowered and hid in a dark corner, trying to lower his presence. Seeing this, the demon snorted coldly. "What are you hiding for? Get out here." Upon hearing this, Chung Mu, who was in darkness, suddenly realized that there was someone else here. Looking through a faint light, Chung Mu found that there seemed to be a figure moving in the shadows. She opened her eyes wide curiously to look at the trembling figure, and her face was full of question marks. Who was this person? It looked like he was very afraid of this evildoer. Suddenly, Chung Mu seemed to have found a soulmate, who asked him to be quite afraid of evildoers. However, that person seemed to be even more useless than him. After being shouted at by the demon, that person slowly moved his feet and seemed to be very reluctant to reveal his head. "Why you're here? What?" The question marks on Chung Mu's face increased. What kind of greeting was this? "Get out here. It's been so long. Why haven't you grown any courage?" The demon said with a look of disdain. The Peacock King was so depressed that he was about to cry. It wasn't that he didn't have the courage, okay? However, he was too afraid of this man. You. Hurry up and come out. He'll introduce you to a new friend." The demon couldn't stand the Peacock King's submissive look and roared again. Peacock King trembled in fear. However, this time, he moved faster and immediately jumped out of the shadows. "This is Chung Mu, your future partner. He will be trained with you," the demon said to the Peacock King. "Oh, hello, I'm the Peacock King." The Peacock King nodded at Chung Mu in a friendly manner. The Peacock King? Chung Mu was shocked. He thought that his training partner was human. He didn't expect it to be the Peacock King, or was he just a human named Peacock King? Seeing that Chung Mu was looking at him curiously, the Peacock King smiled and added, "I am the king of the peacock race." It was really as he thought. Chung Mu was overjoyed. Although it was dark here, and she couldn't see the Peacock King's appearance clearly, she had heard that the Peacock clan was full of handsome men and beautiful women. The Peacock King in front of her must be quite good-looking. More importantly, he felt that if he could get along well with the king of the peacock race, the Peacock King would be happy and let his own clansmen recognize him as their master or something. That would be quite good. Chung Mu was daydreaming happily. His gaze towards the Peacock King became even more fervent. However, his passionate eyes made the Peacock King's heart tremble. He was too familiar with this human's eyes. It was clearly the gaze that the Phoenix King would have when he had designs on him. "Woo! Master, save me. Someone has bad ideas about you, little peacock." The Peacock King, who originally wanted to live in peace with Chung Mu, was frightened by Chung Mu's fiery eyes. He could not help but be wary of him. He even thought that the human in front of him was a bad guy who was deliberately arranged by his master's man to destroy his relationship with his master. With this thought, he naturally did not have a good expression on Chung Mu. However, the overly excited Chung Mu did not feel the Peacock King's sudden coldness. Instead, he was still immersed in his excitement. Thanks looking at the two people's completely different reactions, the demon's eyes flashed, and he laughed evilly. "You guys stay here and get to know each other. Your special training will officially begin in 3 days." After saying that, the demon's figure flashed, and he left immediately. As soon as the demon left, Chung Mu immediately went to the Peacock King's side to please him. He looked at the Peacock King with a burning gaze and laughed. "Peacock King, we'll be partners from now on. Please take care of me. Go away. Get away from me." After hearing Chung Mu's words, the Peacock King said without giving her any face. Chung Mu was dumbfounded. He didn't offend the Peacock King, right? Why did the Peacock King have such an attitude towards him? Chung Mu, who was puzzled, looked at the Peacock King with an aggrieved face and choked. "Peacock King, I really want to be your friend. We will be training together in the future. It is only natural for us to help each other. So, don't keep me at arm's length. I will be very sad if you continue to act like this. Chung Mu was so submissive because she had been hanging out with the beasts in the land of demons for a few days and more or less understood the nature of the beasts. He knew that many beasts were actually like humans. They could be persuaded by reason, but not forced by force. So, he lowered his stance and said some soft words to ensure that he would not go wrong. This was called the strategy of a grieving army. However, it was a pity that the Peacock King thought that Chung Mu was here to destroy his relationship with his master. Therefore, he had long been wary of Chung Mu. Therefore, when he heard Chung Mu's soft and gentle words, he not only did not feel Chung Mu's sincerity, but he even felt that this human was unscrupulous in order to leave a good impression on him. This was really too detestable. However, Chung Mu did not know that he had overreached himself and was still trying to please the Peacock King. Chung Mu kept trying to find out the Peacock King's preferences, but the Peacock King seemed to be indifferent. Although Chung Mu felt a little helpless about this, it also made him braver. The next 3 days were spent with Chung Mu's boring questions. In these 3 days, the Peacock King only hummed and laughed in response. He had never answered Chung Mu's questions directly. This result made Chung Mu so depressed that he almost scratched the wall. The demon once again descended into the small black room. What he saw was the Peacock King putting on a noble and cold expression, while Chung Mu was drawing circles in the corner, sighing sadly. He knew that the two of them didn't seem to get along well, but that wasn't what he was concerned about. The demon quickly gathered the two of them together and told them that the special training officially began today. As soon as he finished speaking, the originally dark room instantly lit up. Only then did Chung Mu see the Peacock King's appearance clearly. She was truly a stunning beauty. Although she couldn't be compared to that devilish man, she was still beautiful enough to make people unable to look away. AI. No wonder the Peacock King was so difficult to deal with. Beauties should have special privileges, regardless of gender. After seeing the Peacock King's appearance, Chung Mu was relieved that the Peacock King had ignored her. However, the Peacock King still did not give Chung Mu a good look. When the Peacock King turned his gaze to his master's terrifying man, he was stunned and could not come back to his senses for a long time. How could Master, this man, look so handsome? Was he still human? Even the Peacock King, who was quite confident in his own beauty, felt inferior when he saw the heaven-shaking, earth-shattering, and God-weeping beauty of this demon. The demon ignored the Peacock King's stunned expression and announced the rules he had set. Only by defeating the person he had arranged would the two of them have the chance to leave this place. After that, a black figure appeared in front of Chung Mu and the Peacock King. The figure was wrapped up tightly from head to toe, leaving only a pair of cold eyes outside. Seeing this, Chung Mu could not help but widen his eyes. This guy's strength is so powerful. She only glanced at him lightly. He felt endless pressure and immediately felt breathless. In particular, the other party's sinister cold eyes made him feel like prostrating himself in worship. Who exactly was this person? Chung Mu's heart trembled uncontrollably. He was very curious about this person's identity, but he did not dare to ask. "Aunt," a cold and disdainful male voice rang out. Then, the owner of the voice looked at the demon with a respectful expression and said, "Master, please give these two ants to me. They'll let them know what the hell-like training is." "Good. As long as you don't die, you could do anything." The demon irresponsibly left such a sentence and disappeared without a trace. An ant? Was she talking about him? Chung Mu's face was full of disbelief. There were only these two words in his heart. He ignored everything that the evildoer had said before he left because these two words were too much of a blow to him. Their Chung clan was a powerful clan with a reputation and status in the divine realm. However, how could he be considered an ant in this person's eyes? This made the proud Chung Mu unable to accept such an insult no matter what. Chapter 2475. The Evildoer's Abduction. 1. Chung Mu was very angry, and the consequences were very serious. The serious consequence of this was that Chung Mu impulsively attacked the man who was tightly wrapped and only left a pair of cold eyes outside. Looking at the weak Chung Mu, who was like a sharp sword, rapidly flying away to avoid the attack, the Peacock King could not help but curl his lips in disdain. He secretly thought in his heart, he really overestimates his own ability. That scary man's subordinate even dared to provoke him. He, who was tactful, could already foresee Chung Mu's tragic situation. However, he was happy to watch the show. After all, with Chung Mu, this silly guy, as the first bird to stand out, he believed that his life would be better. Sure enough, when Chung Mu rushed out and the divine power in his hand was ready to be released, the mysterious man caught a glimpse of Chung Mu's movements. He did not even dodge. A contemptuous smile appeared in his eyes. Then, he gently lifted a leg and kicked in Chung Mu's direction. With a bang, the two forces collided. After that, the mysterious man in black elegantly retracted his leg. Chung Mu was like a falling meteor. Before she could shoot out her divine power, she was kicked and flew to the wall behind him. Chung Mu was in the shape of a Chinese character. After being kicked to the wall, she quickly slid down from the smooth wall. Her entire person fainted from the violent collision. "Wake him up," the mysterious black-robed man ordered coldly. The Peacock King, whose face had already turned pale from fear, nodded his head rapidly. He could tell that this man was not someone he could offend. That was why he would not challenge his authority like Chung Mu. When the Peacock King received the order, he first walked to Chung Mu's side and gave him 2 hard kicks to avenge his coveting. Then he softened his strength and continued to kick him. After a while, Chung Mu finally woke up from the Peacock King's torture. Chung Mu, who had just woken up, was still a little confused. However, in a flash, he remembered everything that had happened and immediately glared at the mysterious man in black. However, under the man's cold, knife-like gaze, Chung Mu's little heart trembled and she became listless. Whoa, where did this pervert come from? He had defeated him with 1 kick. Chung Mu was very worried, but he did not dare to challenge other people's authority easily. At this time, he suddenly realized that there were a few more footprints on his body. Then, he saw that 1 foot was only a few centimeters away from his clothes. Fuck! He looked up angrily at the owner of his feet, the Peacock King. He thought to himself, I can't afford to offend that perverted man in black, but I can't afford to offend a peacock. After thinking about it this way, Chung Mu really felt that he needed a punching bag. There were only 3 people present now. One of them was someone he could not beat, and the other was himself. Therefore, the position of punching bag should naturally fall on the Peacock King. Suddenly, Chung Mu's eyes looked at the Peacock King fervently again. Thanks, he felt that as long as he could defeat the Peacock King, his status would definitely be ranked before the Peacock King in the future. In that case, wouldn't the Peacock King have to listen to everything he said? At that time, not to mention ordering the Peacock King to give him a peacock for him to recognize him as his master. The Peacock King might even recognize him as his master under his domineering aura. Chung Mu was having a sweet dream. When the Peacock King received the message from Chung Mu's eyes, the unhappiness in his heart immediately rose to another level. He did not withdraw his foot in time, because Chung Mu suddenly woke up. This time, he did not intend to withdraw it immediately. Instead, he kicked Chung Mu's body again. This time, he was provoking him. Aya, you're quite bold. Seeing the Peacock King like this, Chung Mu was so happy that he wanted to roar out. He had come to the door himself. Chung Mu, who was overjoyed and hot-headed, had completely forgotten that he could not see through the Peacock King's cultivation. This could only prove that the Peacock King's strength was above his. However, under such circumstances, he could not think too much. He was bent on subduing the Peacock King and finding an honest and obedient beast for himself. Chung Mu had completely lost his mind with this thought. He looked at the Peacock King as if he was a high-grade crystal mine, and his eyes were burning with fire. However, the Peacock King's eyes were full of disdain. However, Chung Mu ignored this disdain. After all, in his eyes, beasties should be this kind of noble and cold type. He would not like a beastie that was too casual. The more Chung Mu looked at the Peacock King, the more he liked him. His desire for the Peacock King was like a kitten living in his heart. It was so itchy that he scratched his heart and liver. He had a strong desire to subdue the Peacock King. He did not think much and immediately pounced on the Peacock King. The Peacock King, who was already mentally prepared, naturally would not let him succeed so easily. However, he also did not want to let him go. In an instant, the two of them started a fight. Not only did they fight with their fists and legs, but their shun power also dazzled everyone. The mysterious man in black, who was watching their interaction coldly, did not stop the two of them from fighting in front of him. However, the corner of his mouth under the mask could not help but twitch. These two guys were really... He didn't know when the people of the divine realm had become so barbaric. They even used their fists and legs in a fight. This had greatly subverted his understanding of the people of the divine realm. However, he was only surprised for a moment before he calmed down. In his hometown, he had seen a lot of barbarians who used their fists and kicks, so he didn't really care about the fancy fists and kicks of these two ants in front of him. But what he didn't know was that the reason why these two people used divine power and fought in close combat was mostly because they had learned from his master. Whether it was the Peacock King or Chung Mu, both of them had enjoyed the freakish treatment of fists and legs, which had left a deep impression on them until today. From the moment they were beaten up, the two of them had secretly vowed that in the future, when they fought with others, they would also try the feeling of punching and kicking people. However, they had only learned the tip of the iceberg of the evildoer's skills. They had not learned the essence of the evildoer's skills. In the eyes of the mysterious man in black, the fight between the two of them was just a show of fancy moves that could not be put on stage. After watching for a while, the mysterious man in black could not help but feel a little impatient when he saw that the two of them had yet to decide the winner. The people of the divine realm were really weak. There was still no winner after such a long time. It seemed that he had a long way to go. The man in black sighed. He had a general understanding of the strength of these two people. However, with their mediocre talents, he was more or less worried. He was very afraid that he would not be able to complete his master's task and would disappoint his master. No, he was the famous devil instructor of the 9 Nether prison. No matter what, he couldn't let two weak people from the divine realm ruin his reputation. With this thought, the mysterious man in black's momentum was greatly boosted. As the battle between the Peacock King and Chung Mu went deeper, the man in black, who was known as the devil instructor, had already formulated a detailed plan to improve their strength in his heart. This also decided the dark and gloomy life of the two. Chapter 2476, The Evildoer's Abduction, 2. However, at this moment, the two of them still didn't know what kind of life they were about to face. The two of them were completely focused on the battle, determined to determine the winner. After a long time, the Peacock King, who was slightly stronger than Chung Mu, won by a small margin. However, before he could be happy, he heard the mysterious man in black say with disdain, "Ants are really ants. They're really useless. You took so long to defeat your opponent." Hearing this, the Peacock King was completely listless. Sob, could he be blamed for this? He wasn't a beastie who was good at fighting, so he definitely didn't have enough combat experience. So, wasn't it understandable that he had fought for a long time? However, it was clear that the mysterious black-robed man was someone who only cared about the results. It was impossible for him to understand the Peacock King's thoughts. This also destined the Peacock King to be disappointed. However, before the Peacock King could display his sorrowful mulberry, he heard the mysterious man in black say, "I've decided your training load will be twice as much as this humaness." Double the amount? Was he talking about him? The Peacock King, who had his head lowered, did not dare to raise his head to confirm that these words were directed at him. Thus, he could only deceive himself and pretend to be an ostrich. However, how could the black-clothed man allow him to act dumb? After seeing that the Peacock King was acting dumb, the black-clothed man directly called out, "Peacock King, your training load will be double that of this useless human." The Peacock King was silent for a moment. He couldn't help but sigh to the sky. Oh heavens! Why was that? Immediately after, his face was covered in tears. Since he could no longer pretend to be an ostrich, should he accept this fact? The Peacock King became even more worried and blamed Chung Mu for the treatment he received. Oof. If this guy didn't want to fight with him, why would the man in black complain about his slow speed and increase the training volume? Sob. He felt so wronged. This was definitely an undeserved calamity. The Peacock King felt that he had been implicated by Chung Mu and was even more unhappy with him. However, the mysterious black-clothed man didn't give the Peacock King too much time to let his imagination run wild. With a slight wave of his hand, the Peacock King and Chung Mu immediately separated a certain distance. Then, both of them heard the mysterious man in black say, "Your training starts now?" "Ah, it's starting now?" The depressed Chung Mu was not mentally prepared at all. He was still silently licking his wound, so when he suddenly heard the black-shirt man's words, Chung Mu immediately panicked. Could he wait for him to finish healing before he started? Chung Mu was begging in his heart. The defeat in the battle with the Peacock King was a huge blow to him. He had not even recovered from that battle. He was not ready yet. It was a pity that the man in black would not give him the chance to prepare. Chung Mu did not dare to say what he was thinking, mainly because he did not have the chance to. As soon as the man in black finished speaking, two more men in black appeared in front of him. Like the previous man in black, the two men who appeared only revealed a pair of cold eyes and attacked Chung Mu without a word. The Peacock King was facing the same situation. The room was in chaos. As the Peacock King and Chung Mu fumbled to avoid the attacks of the two men in black, the voice of the mysterious man in black from before entered his ears again. "They are your training opponents. You can only move on to the next stage of training when you defeat them. Otherwise, you will have to fight forever." After saying this, the mysterious man in black disappeared just as suddenly as he had come. Peacock King and Chung Mu, who had heard this at the same time, did not know how to react. At this moment, they could not think too much. Although the two black-robed men in front of them were on par with them in strength, they were fighting two against one. Therefore, the two of them could only hide in confusion. They could not even touch the corner of their opponent's clothes. This fact made the two of them extremely depressed. Thanks as the battle went on, Peacock King and Chung Mu suddenly realized that the original room had been separated. There was a transparent wall between the two of them. With this wall, although the two of them could see each other's battle, they could not touch each other. As such, even if the two of them wanted to give up on their previous enmity, they wouldn't even have the chance to fight hand-to-hand. The two of them had no choice but to accept their fate. The endless battle officially took place in the mysterious room. At this moment, Lung Ruoxue, who was being intimate with the evildoer in the garden, saw a sly smile on the evildoer's lips. She could not help but raise her brows and asked curiously, "What's wrong, demon?" It's just that the training I gave Peacock King and Chung Mu has already started." The demon said calmly, "Oh, their strength isn't high, so don't play with them to death." Lung Ruoxue could not help but remind him. "Don't worry, I know what I'm doing," the demon laughed. His eyes flickered as he changed the topic and asked, "Do you want to come with me to the Nine Nether Prison?" Upon hearing this, Lung Ruoxue was momentarily stunned. Nine Nether Prison? Could you go now? Seeing that Lung Ruoxue was silent, the demon continued. "Didn't you say that you were going to send some people to the Nine Nether Prison to enjoy themselves? Let's go there today." Today? Lung Ruoxue was shocked. Since when did this evildoer become a man of action? She was not mentally prepared at all. Although Nine Nether Prison was the territory of evildoers, she always felt like an ugly daughter-in-law visiting her in-laws' home, which made her a little timid. Moreover, there were still many opponents waiting for her in the Divine Realm. Was it all right for her to leave the Divine Realm now? These things also made her hesitate. She had thought of sending Black One and the others to the Nine Nether Prison to enjoy themselves, but she had no intention of going there herself. However, facing the demon's expectant eyes, she couldn't refuse no matter what. "Sob, what should she do?" Seeing that Lung Ruoxue was in a dilemma, the demon's fiery heart felt as if it had been doused with a sea of ice shards. However, he was not a man who was easily defeated by difficulties, so he quickly regained his spirits and planned to persuade Xue to go with him. However, before he could persuade her, he heard an angry voice ring in their ears. "Don't go. Nyo, I won't allow you to go to the netherworld jail. Why can't you?" Hearing this, the demon was furious. He couldn't bear to get angry at Xue, but why would he care about a cat? The divine realm needs Nyo very much now, so Nyo can't leave. Azure said confidently, "Oh really? But I also need Xue. The prisoners in our hands also need to be sent to the nether prison to enjoy their lives, so Xue has to come with me." The evildoer's reason was also very good, and he clearly expressed that he needed Xue to accompany him. Chapter 2477, The Evildoer's Abduction, 3. You're not a child. Azure said angrily, "The divine realm isn't like that either. Don't tell me that you want Xue to duel with the Mist Ripple right now." The demon said with a face full of ridicule. Unless Song he could make a move, otherwise, the current Xue would not be a match for Fog Ice. However, if he wanted them to make a move, he would have to suffer the punishment of the laws of heaven and earth. He knew that Xue would never allow this. Neo needs to improve her strength. Besides, don't those prisoners have a place to go? I don't think we need to send them to the nether prison. It's the same to leave them in the divine world. Song quibbled. How can that be the same? If we leave them in the divine world, they might be saved by Wu Xian at any time. However, if we lock them in the nether prison, Wu Xian will have to pay a great price if he wants to help us. Therefore, it is the safest to lock them in my territory. What do you think, Xue? As the demon spoke, he shifted his gaze to Lung Ruoxue and asked her directly. There's no need for Xue to say, "If you're afraid it's not safe, it's the same to lock them in the God-protecting pagoda." Song didn't even give Lung Ruoxue the chance to speak and rushed to speak. Seeing the two of them arguing endlessly over this, Lung Ruoxue was so conflicted that her head hurt. "Don't fight anymore," she said helplessly after some thought. "Why don't you draw lots to decide?" Drawing lots. The two of them looked at each other, but they both felt that this was a good idea, so they nodded in agreement. And the person who drew the lots was naturally Lung Ruoxue. The two of them quickly made several identical bamboo sticks and mixed them together. Then, they stared at Lung Ruoxue with anticipation. Faced with the two's expectant gazes, Lung Ruoxue instantly felt immense pressure. After thinking for a while, Lung Ruoxue still hadn't decided which stick to pick. This made Evil Demon and Azure a little anxious. The two of them naturally hoped that Lung Ruoxue would pick the place they provided. "Xue, hurry up." The demon couldn't help but urge. "Yeah, girl, quickly smoke one." Azure also urged. "Let's make this clear first. No matter where you get chosen, you can't fight." Lung Ruoxue reminded him worriedly. Yes. Evildoer and Cold nodded in tacit agreement. After that, Lung Ruoxue closed her eyes and reached out to feel around the stone table. In the end, she chose one of the pillars. Without waiting for Lung Ruoxue to look at it, Evildoer and Song impatiently snatched the bamboo stick from Lung Ruoxue's hands. After looking at it, Evildoer's face revealed a smile, while Tsong's little face instantly darkened. Seeing their reactions, Lung Ruoxue knew the result without even looking. AI. It seemed that this was all fate. This ugly daughter-in-law of hers still had to visit her in-law's house. Even though Lung Ruoxue was still a little timid at this moment, she quickly forced herself to calm down. After he told Uncle Long and the others about this, they were petrified. Nether prison? It was the legendary hell. Apart from the natives of the nether prison, only the dead or gods could go there. Speaking of which, they were also quite curious about that place, but they didn't know if the Dark Lord would be willing to bring them along. Everyone had a certain level of tacit understanding regarding this matter. After carefully explaining their thoughts to Lung Ruoxue, Lung Ruoxue was so happy that she almost jumped up. She knew that Uncle Long and the others would not let her down. In fact, when she told Uncle Long and the others about this, she had been hoping that they would join in the fun. This would give her courage, wouldn't it? Otherwise, she would feel extremely uneasy in her heart. However, since Uncle Long and the others had suggested it, she did not dare to casually agree. Otherwise, if the evildoer were to get angry, she would have to think of ways to coax him. With a fawning smile, Lung Ruoxue turned to look at the evildoer, using her eyes to seek his opinion. The demon saw how cautious Shui was, afraid that he would be angry. He couldn't help but laugh in his heart. He didn't expect that Shui, who was always fearless, would be so scared when he heard that he was going to take her to the Nine Nether prison. However, it was rare to see Shui like this. Therefore, the demon decided to enjoy it for a while before telling her the result. Just like that, the demon's eyes were fixated on Lung Ruoxue. Even when Lung Ruoxue was trembling and her hair was standing on end, the demon did not say a word. Thanks seeing this, Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but feel aggrieved. Sob, as a man and the dark master of the 9 underworlds, the evildoer could never understand how nervous and timid a woman who was cultivated from an ordinary human being would be when facing her in-laws. The fear that the other party would not like her could not be controlled and would grow in her heart. Lung Ruoxue was experiencing this feeling right now. In fact, when she was still an ordinary human in her previous life, many women around her would change their expressions at the mention of their in-laws, so she was more or less affected. She knew that it was not easy to deal with her in-laws, and she did not have such experience. As a result, she naturally fell into the strange circle of fear of her in-laws. She even forgot that her man was the master of a world born from chaos and was naturally different from ordinary people. Who would dare to show her attitude? However, at this time, the demon had no idea where the fear in Shui Er's heart came from. Even if Song knew, he had no intention of reminding her. What he was thinking was that he would not tell that damn demon why Shui was so unwilling when she heard that she was going to the Nine Nether prison. He'll just let him misunderstand that Shui doesn't want to go. It had to be said that Song's little plan had succeeded. Even though the evildoer could see Lung Ruoxue's cowardice, he did not know the reason. However, the evildoer's heart was too strong and did not take this matter too seriously. Naturally, he would not be angered by such a small matter. At most, he would be a little depressed. After a long time, after staring at Lung Ruoxue for a long time, the evildoer who had almost driven Lung Ruoxue mad finally nodded and said, "Since everyone is interested, let's go and take a look." After all, such an opportunity is hard to come by. It was far more than rare. If they didn't know the mistress of the dark world, they wouldn't have been able to go anywhere. Everyone was secretly thinking to themselves. They were very excited that the demon was finally willing to take them to visit the Nine Nether prison. However, even though he had decided to go there, he could not leave immediately. First of all, he had to make arrangements for the land of demons, right? Secondly, he had to make arrangements for Cheng Xian and the others who didn't know about the demon's identity, right? Once again, Xin Nuo and the rest also expressed their opinions on the slaves they were about to lose. The matters in the demonic land were very easy to arrange, and the requests of Xin Nuo and the others were also satisfied because they wanted to go there to take a look. Thus, Lung Ruoxue only told them that there would definitely be no shortage of people to test medicine for them in the future, and that all the captives would be given priority for them to choose first. They immediately agreed without any backbone. However, Cheng Xian and a few others who didn't know the identity of the evildoer were not easy to send away. In reality, Xin Nuo and the others didn't know the demon's identity at the start. However, after spending so much time together, Lung Ruoxue didn't hide the demon's identity from them on purpose. After all, those few fellows had already made up their minds to stick to them, including Jiang Ning, who had joined them the latest. It was impossible to get rid of them, so there was naturally no need to hide it from them. However, Lung Ruoxue was hesitant to tell Cheng Xian. This was mainly because of his identity. On the contrary, Lung Ruoxue was not worried about Ning Haolon, who should also be in the dark. After all, with her godfather around, the Nings would find out sooner or later. After thinking for a long time, Lung Ruoxue asked for the evildoer's opinion. After knowing that the evildoer did not care if his identity was known by them, Lung Ruoxue decided to tell them the truth when necessary. Otherwise, she really did not know how to send them off. Furthermore, she had a good understanding of Chang Xian's character and knew that he was not a big-mouthed person. After making her decision, Lung Ruoxue went to look for Chang Xian and Ning Haolon. She went straight to the point and told them that she and the others would be going out soon and asked them about their plans. Chang Xian and Ning Haolon looked at each other and asked, "Shui, you're not planning to bring us along?" The two of them were not stupid. They knew that there must be a reason for Lung Ruoxue to ask such a question. Hence, they did not try to be pretentious and were rather direct with their questions. When Lung Ruoxue heard this, she said with some difficulty, "It's not impossible to bring you guys along, but that place might not be the place you want to go." Lung Ruoxue's words were rather reserved. From what she knew, other than Uncle Long and the others who liked to join in the fun, no normal person would be filled with yearning for that place. What is it? Ning Haolon couldn't help but feel curious. Chang Xian also looked like a curious baby. The two of them stared at Lung Ruoxue, their faces full of questions. "We're going to hell." "Oh, it's the Nine Nether prison that you know of." Lung Ruoxue stated her destination calmly. As expected, the two handsome men, who were calm at the start, were petrified. After an unknown period of time, the two of them slowly regained their senses. Chang Xian looked at Lung Ruoxue as if he was looking at a monster. His eyes widened as he said in shock, "Shui, do you know what you're saying? That's a place only the dead can go. Do you want to take us to commit suicide together?" Chapter 2478. Taking this woman. 1. Chang Xian was very frightened. He even started to let his imagination run wild. Could it be that Shui had been triggered by something he didn't know about? Otherwise, how could he have such a terrifying thought? When he thought of this possibility, his gaze towards Lung Ruoxue suddenly turned into one of sympathy, causing Lung Ruoxue to not know whether to laugh or cry. However, Ning Haolon wasn't as stupid as he was, and naturally wouldn't think the same way as Chang Xian. Besides, Ning Haolon was rather calm and didn't say a word. He believed that Shui would definitely have more to say. "We don't need to commit suicide as a group. The evildoer will take us there." Lung Ruoxue sighed and said helplessly. She was a little impressed with Chang Xian's imagination. It was really too powerful, wasn't it? How can he take us to the Nine Nether prison? To kill us? Chang Xian couldn't help but ask again. Since it wasn't a suicide, then he probably killed her, right? Hearing this, Lung Ruoxue was even more speechless. Why couldn't this devilish brat think of something better? Although he was curious, he could just wait for her answer after asking. Why did he have to add on a sentence that made people gnash their teeth? What was he trying to do? Not only was Lung Ruoxue speechless at Chang Xian's imagination, but Ning Haolon was also speechless after hearing Chang Xian's words. His expression seemed to say, "I don't know this person." It was too embarrassing, wasn't it? "Don't worry, he won't kill us. None of us need to die." This time, Lung Ruoxue let out a heavy sigh before speaking. "Then tell me, how do we get there?" Chang Xian still wanted to ask. Lung Ruoxue rolled her eyes at Chang Xian and tried her best to calm herself down. She then said, "Didn't I say that the evildoer would take us there?" She didn't know if she didn't make herself clear or if Chang Xian didn't understand, but Lung Ruoxue felt that she had already told Chang Xian and Ning Haolon that evildoer would bring them to the Nine Nether prison. However, Chang Xian's question made her go crazy. All right, she admitted that they were not on the same page and that she had deliberately not made her words too clear. However, she had never expected that Chang Xian's intelligence would suddenly drop to such a low level, only thinking about the problem of whether he would die or not. How could they go to the Nine Nether prison? Of course, he would walk there. At the thought of this, Lung Ruoxue smiled evilly and added, "We will walk to the Nine Nether prison. I've made myself clear, haven't I? She was deliberately not telling them the identity of the evildoer. So what? Lung Ruoxua secretly complained to herself willfully. With that, Lung Ruoxua ignored the two dumbfounded creatures and turned around to leave. It was a long time after Lung Ruoxua had left that the two of them finally regained their senses. Cheng Xian said with a depressed look, Shui, still hasn't said how to get there? She said, let's go. Ning Haolon said softly, frowning. In fact, he was also depressed. He felt that Shui was deliberately teasing them. Moreover, he also felt that Shui had not only wanted to tell them this. She might have been angered by that idiot Cheng Xian, which was why she only said, let's go in the end. As for how she would go, she did not say a single word. At that thought, Ning Haolon couldn't help but glance at the confused Cheng Xian and sigh helplessly. This guy looks pretty smart usually, but why does he seem so dumb in front of Shui? In the end, Ning Haolon only said to Cheng Xian, I want to take a look at the 9 Nether prison. He patted his butt and left. At this moment, Cheng Xian finally reacted and shouted, then he'll go too. Thanks, forget it. No matter how he went, he should be able to go to places that others could go to. With that thought, he decided to immediately tell Shui his decision. After Lung Ruoxua left the two of them, she walked to the garden with a dejected look on her face. She then sat down on the empty seat beside the evil demon. Seeing that Lung Ruoxua was in a bad mood, the evil demon could not help but ask, what, did my identity scare them? No, I didn't tell the two of them who you were. Lung Ruoxua huffed angrily. After saying this, she repeated what Cheng Xian had said to the evildoer. She strongly expressed that she was angered by Cheng Xian's words, so she did not mention the evildoer's identity at all. The demon couldn't help but burst into laughter after hearing this. Lung Ruoxua rolled her eyes at him and said in an unpleasant tone, is this funny? Isn't it funny? The demon held back his laughter and asked. Based on his understanding of Cheng Xian, it was not strange for him to ask such a question. Moreover, he believed that Cheng Xian's original intention should be to find out how he could take them to the 9 Nether prison. However, that kid did not realize that there was anything wrong with his words. As such, he naturally angered Shui. After looking at Shui's angry face for a while, the demon really felt that he should reward Cheng Xian, who asked Shui to be even more beautiful when she was angry. He really couldn't get enough of it. The demon couldn't get enough of it and kept staring at Lung Ruoxua. In the end, Lung Ruoxua was scared out of her wits. While there was no one around, Lung Ruoxua wanted to change the topic, so she grabbed the demon's arm and asked softly, Demon, tell me the truth. Why do you want me to go to the 9 Nether prison with you now? She didn't believe that the evildoer would want to take her there for no reason. There must be something wrong. The evildoer must be going back, but he was worried about her, so he wanted her to go with him. It must be like this. Didn't I say that I was going to send those captives to the 9 Nether prison? I don't want to go alone, so I want you to accompany me. The demon laughed after hearing Lung Ruoxua's words. You think he'll believe you? Lung Ruoxua deliberately put on a straight face and said unhappily, then what do I have to do to make you believe me? The demon looked at Lung Ruoxua helplessly. Is there something in the 9 Nether prison that you have to go back and deal with? Lung Ruoxua squinted her beautiful eyes as she voiced her guess. If I said nothing happened, would you believe me? The demon asked with a calm smile. What do you think? Lung Ruoxua's tone was a little unfriendly. You'll believe me if I say so, the demon said confidently. All right, you're ruthless. Lung Ruoxua glared at the evildoer, her beautiful face filled with helplessness. The demon laughed smugly. Seeing his expression, Lung Ruoxua was even more certain that something must have happened in the 9 Nether prison. However, since the demon was not willing to say anything, she would not ask. Anyway, if something serious had really happened, the demon would not be able to hide it from them once they reached the 9 Nether prison. Shui, I want to go with you. Just as Lung Ruoxua was thinking about how to punish this detestable evildoer, Cheng Xian's voice rang in their ears from afar. Soon after, Cheng Xian's men arrived and looked at Lung Ruoxua with anticipation. Chapter 2479. I want this woman. 2. You won't regret it? Lung Ruoxue confirmed. I want tea. He wouldn't tea. How could he miss such a rare opportunity? However, when we go there, you have to take care of me more. I'm afraid of strangers. Cheng Xian said shyly. Lung Ruoxue was speechless again when she saw Cheng Xian's shy expression. Just how thick was this guy's skin? Only then would she have the face to pretend to be a white flower? What, you decided to go too? Ning Haolan's voice was heard. Cheng Xian nodded seriously. Seeing this, Ning Haolan smiled and said, That's good, we have company. Then, Ning Haolan shifted his gaze to Lung Ruoxue and asked with a smile, Was there something you didn't finish earlier? Did I? Lung Ruoxue blinked her bright eyes and played dumb. The ancestor said there is. Ning Haolan had betrayed his own ancestor. Then he'll let Godfather tell you. Lung Ruoxue said irresponsibly. Ning Haolan was a little dumbfounded. The old master had already said that unless Shui told him of her own accord, she would not tell him. Shui the old ancestor said that I can only ask you. Ning Haolan quickly added, Oh, really? Since that's the case, he'll tell you. Lung Ruoxue didn't keep them in suspense. After she finished speaking, she even took a look at Cheng Xian before slowly telling the two of them about the demon's identity. As she wished, she saw the two of them turn into stone again. Only then did she pull the demon back to her room in a good mood. After Lung Ruoxue and the demon left, the two of them were still in a daze for a long time. The next day, the two of them managed to regain their senses with a sneaky expression on their faces. From time to time, they would sneak a glance at the demon, trying to see how he looked different from the others, and if he had 3 heads and 6 arms. In the end, the evildoer's anger was ignited by their strange gazes. He immediately dragged the two of them to the corner and gave him a good beating. Only then did his mood improve. Damn it! Let's see if anyone would dare to treat him like a monster in the future. After being beaten up, Cheng Xian and Ning Haolan lived for a long time with their swollen faces. The Violet Man had said that this was their punishment, so they could only recover naturally and not receive treatment. Otherwise, they would definitely be beaten up even more miserably than they were now. When the two of them heard that, they didn't dare to take any healing pills anymore. He could only wait for the wound on his face to heal slowly. After this beating, the two of them couldn't help but have a deeper respect for the evildoer in their hearts, because that guy was really too hateful. Other than his face, he didn't beat up anything else. Wasn't this clearly embarrassing them? However, being beaten up was really nothing. Who hadn't been beaten up before? And what made them the saddest after being beaten up was that no one dared to speak up for them when everyone watched them being bullied by evil forces. Whoa! Fortunately, after the two of them were beaten up, Lung Ruoxue empathized with their miserable state and didn't lead the team to set off immediately. She even considerately gave them a few days to recuperate. That was why they didn't lose all their face and go to the 9 nether prison. Before they set off, the swelling on their faces had subsided a lot, and their faces were no longer as scary as pig heads. However, they were still far from the standard of a handsome man, but they were already quite satisfied with this. After everything was done, Lung Ruoxue and the rest were ready to set off. Thanks on the day of departure, everyone left the courtyard and patiently waited for the demon to break through the void. At this moment, a surprised voice suddenly rang out. Did you guys come out to welcome me because you knew I was coming? Upon hearing this, everyone turned their heads in unison and saw that it was a young man who had spoken. Feng Chuan, you're really slow. Lung Ruoxue glanced at the man who spoke and smiled. Back then, Feng Chuan had wanted to leave with them, and they had already agreed on the meeting point. However, because the demon and the rest had suddenly gone to the Phoenix territory, they had no choice but to change their strategy and act alone. However, Lung Ruoxue had not expected that Feng Chuan, who had set off earlier than them, would actually arrive at the land of demons later than them. I'm lost, Feng Chuan said, a little embarrassed. It doesn't matter. It's better to come at the right time than to come early. Since you're here, let's go out and play together, Lung Ruoxue said with a smile. Where to? Feng Chuan didn't expect these people in front of him to be so carefree. They still wanted to go out and play when they were surrounded by strong enemies. AI. It seemed that comparing people really made one angry. Look at him. The enemies were almost filling up the entire deep sea, but he still had the mood to wander around. You'll know when we get there. Lung Ruoshua laughed evilly. She didn't have the time to explain to Feng Chuan. She could only lure him to the 9 nether prison first. Oh, although Feng Chuan's face was full of question marks, he didn't think too much about it when he saw the excitement on everyone's faces. But when he saw a black hole the size of a human eye appear in the void not far from him, he couldn't help but widen his eyes. Who could tell him what he had seen? Break open a void? From what he remembered, only those who were at least reverent god level and above could have such an ability. Moreover, not all reverent god level cultivators could do it because the amount of divine power required to break open the void was unimaginable. If the cultivators could not determine the coordinates of the other side, they would not dare to easily break open the void. Otherwise, if they were transported to some terrible place, even reverent god level cultivators would die. But what about the one in front of him? The handsome man who had broken through the void was not a reverent god at all. As the black hole the size of a human's, I slowly became bigger and deeper in everyone's eyes. The dark aura in the black hole also came over. Feng Chuan saw this and couldn't help but shiver. What was on the other side? Why did it give him such a terrifying feeling? However, before Feng Chuan could figure out, he was dragged into the black hole by a group of overly excited people. At first, the dark, cold space gave people a very uncomfortable feeling. However, as the demon gave them a layer of protection, everyone immediately felt the warmth of spring. However, the space tunnel was still dark, so they could not see their own fingers. As the tunnel twisted, everyone's bodies involuntarily trembled for a short, while before immediately returning to normal. In the next second, they could clearly feel that they had already left the space tunnel. However, the place they were in was still very dark. The sky was covered by thick black clouds. From time to time, there would be a few huge lightning bolts falling from the sky. One of them was only a few meters away from them. However, everything here did not make them feel afraid. On the contrary, because of the existence of the demon, they felt more at ease. Who asked them to have such a strong backing? The demon wouldn't just watch them encounter danger, right? Everyone was quite confident about this. Chapter 2480. I want this woman, 3. But the only one who didn't know the truth, Feng Chuan, wasn't as calm as them. More importantly, Feng Chuan couldn't understand why these people had such an excited look on their faces. Did it mean what he knew? If that was really what he meant, Feng Chuan could only express his speechlessness. His thoughts were not on the same wavelength as theirs. How could anyone like such a gloomy place? At least he didn't like it. It was wrong. He really didn't like it. Everything here, whether it was the environment or the aura, made him quite disgusted. He really didn't want to stay here anymore. Thinking of this, Feng Chuan finally gathered his courage and asked, "What is this place?" 9 nether prison. Uncle Long looked at Feng Chuan with sympathy and told him the truth. With a plop, these 4 words let everyone see Feng Chuan stumble and fall to the ground as they had hoped. His handsome little face instantly turned pale and his tall body trembled a little. Then, Feng Chuan nervously grabbed Uncle Long's hand and reminded him in a low voice, "What are you doing here? Was he going to die? Let's quickly leave before the infernal realm discovers us. Otherwise, don't even think about leaving this place alive. You should know that our bodies are great tonics for the evil ghosts here. You know quite a lot." The demon laughed indifferently. I read about it in the ancient books of the Phoenix clan, but I can't be sure if it's true." Feng Chuan said honestly, "You're telling the truth. Your bodies are not only a great supplement for evil spirits, but also for the natives here." The demon laughed evilly. "Arg, then let's leave this place quickly. This place is too dangerous." When Feng Chuan heard this, his face turned pale. Uncle Long and the others saw this and didn't know how to comfort him. In fact, they were also a little afraid of what the evildoers said. However, they were not so afraid because they knew the identity of the evildoer. Besides, the body of a cultivator was a great supplement to the evil ghosts and the natives of hell, even to some gods who practiced evil cultivation techniques. However, the act of devouring other people's divine bodies to cultivate was forbidden in the divine realm. However, it was hard to say here. Uncle Long and the others only looked at Feng Chuan with sympathy and ignored him. When Feng Chuan saw that no one responded to his words, he was so scared that he wanted to cry. Woo, someone save him. Why weren't these people afraid? In the end, it was Lung Ruoxue who couldn't stand it anymore and consoled her, "Don't be afraid. With my man here, the evil spirits and natives here won't dare to eat you. Besides, I really think that they might not be interested in you. You should know that the people of the Nine Nether Prison are all dark attributed, and if they really eat you, I'm afraid that they will have indigestion." Upon hearing this, Uncle Long and the others broke out in cold sweat. "Schwer, are you trying to comfort him, or are you trying to scare him?" At this moment, they heard the demon say in a serious tone, "Schwer, you're wrong. Evil spirits don't care what attribute the tonic is." Upon hearing this, Uncle Long and the others sympathized with Feng Chuan even more. "Poor little guy, you're on your own." As expected, after Feng Chuan heard the demon's words, his tall body trembled even more. Lung Ruoxue saw this and felt embarrassed to tease this little phoenix any further. She then told him the truth. "Feng Chuan, my man is from here, so don't worry. You won't be eaten." Although what Lung Ruoxue said was the truth, Uncle Long and the others who were also listening to her felt that her words were a little awkward. However, Feng Chuan, who was too frightened, didn't notice it. After hearing what Lung Ruoxue said, Feng Chuan's face even revealed a surprised expression. The people here?" Feng Chuan looked at the handsome man who seemed to be Lung Ruoxue's man, standing beside her. He blinked his eyes, his face still filled with confusion. Why would the Master Yes disciple find a man from the Netherworld prison? How'd they hook up? Thanks thinking of this, the fear in Feng Chuan's heart was reduced a lot, and the fire of gossip was completely burning. "This is my territory. Don't worry, I'll do my best as the host and show you around." Looking at Feng Chuan's still somewhat dazed expression, the evil man laughed. "Oh," Feng Chuan replied dumbly. Although he really wanted to ask how big your territory was here, he didn't dare to ask. Otherwise, if he angered this man and he was forced to stay here in a fit of anger, who would he cry to? More importantly, he couldn't beat an expert who could break open the void. Because of this, Feng Chuan was full of questions. Even if he didn't understand anything, he didn't dare to ask like a curious baby. The demon and Lung Ruoxue didn't explain too clearly, so Uncle Long and the others naturally wouldn't take the initiative to explain to Feng Chuan. As a result, Feng Chuan had never been able to figure out the identity of this monster. He only knew that they were from the Nine Nether prison and that they had come back to visit their relatives. It was because he placed his own safety in the hands of the evildoer that from the moment Feng Chuan forced himself to calm down, he followed the evildoer like a little tail. After simply comforting Feng Chuan, the evildoer led everyone in the direction of Jiuyo City. However, in order to let everyone experience the culture of the Nine Nether prison, the demon did not bring them to teleport. Instead, they walked all the way. They even took some remote paths. On the way, there were evil ghosts appearing around them from time to time, and they even drooled at Uncle Long and the others. Fortunately, these evil ghosts only drooled at them and did not do anything that would anger the heavens and the people, so Uncle Long and the others were too lazy to get into a conflict with them. In fact, the evil ghosts Uncle Long and the others had encountered along the way weren't very strong. In addition, they had a monstrous aura on them. The evil ghosts attracted by the spiritual chi of Uncle Long and the others didn't dare to attack them at all. However, since the monstrous chi didn't stop them from watching, some of the more courageous evil ghosts followed Uncle Long and the others for a long time. However, the evil spirits were simply too much of an eyesore. Not only were they ugly, but their bodies also emitted a foul stench. When their saliva dripped onto the black ground, it would burn a large hole in it. As such, Uncle Long and the others were thoroughly disgusted by their actions. However, this was the territory of the mistress of the dark world. Since the mistress didn't say anything to chase these people away, it was even more embarrassing for them as guests to say anything. Most importantly, other than drooling at them, they didn't do anything to them, so they really couldn't bring themselves to ask. One had to know that judging a ghost by its appearance was wrong. Just like that, the evil ghosts followed them all the way until they entered the first city they encountered after arriving at the 9 Nether prison. Only then did the evil ghosts stop following them. When everyone saw this, they finally heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that those guys couldn't enter the city. Otherwise, they would be followed and harassed. Unfortunately, not long after they felt relieved, everyone realized that they were a little too relaxed. After entering the 9 capital city, Uncle Long and the others were surprised to find that the people following them had increased in level. If the evil ghosts from before were the lowest level of cultivators, these guys in the city were more than 1 level higher. However, no matter what kind of strength they had, they looked at Uncle Long and the others with the same eyes as the evil ghosts from before, full of drool. Fortunately, these people in the city at least had a human appearance and wouldn't affect the appearance of the city too much. So, as long as they didn't come to harass them, Uncle Long and the others decided to continue to bear with it. Unfortunately, not everyone had the eye to know that a demon was not to be trifled with. After walking 100 meters into the city, a man dressed in luxurious clothes, but with a wretched appearance, came forward and said to the demon, "What's the price of these things? He'll buy them all." Things? Were they talking about them? Uncle Long and the others were quite unhappy when they heard this. One should know that they were all respected and powerful experts in the divine world. How could they allow themselves to be humiliated by a person from the 9 Nether prison? The man's tone was rather arrogant and rude. His pair of murky and gloomy gray eyes sized up Uncle Long and the others from time to time, and he would nod his head in satisfaction. When he saw Lung Ruoxue, the man's eyes were even more sinister and green. It was a look of determination. "I want this woman." Without waiting for the evildoer to reply, the man immediately spoke again. He could not help but gulp as he stared at Lung Ruoxue. Beautiful. It was really too beautiful. She was even more beautiful than the most beautiful woman in the 9 Nether prison. If he could get his hands on this beauty and gift her to his father, his status in the family would surely be even higher. The man pondered happily and decided on Lung Ruoxue's location in a few seconds. Although he was a little reluctant to give away such a beauty, with his strength, if he did not take the initiative to give away this beauty, he was afraid that he would not be able to keep such a beauty. It was definitely the best choice to give it to his father, because he might have the chance to take advantage of the beauty. With this thought, he was even more eager to get the beauty. Looking at the beautiful Lung Ruoxue in front of him, the man could not help but reach out his hand, wanting to touch Lung Ruoxue's tender and beautiful face. Lung Ruoxue dodged slightly to the side, and the man pounced on empty air. Chapter 2481. Tofu isn't that delicious. 1. Not being able to take advantage of the beauty made the lecherous man quite dissatisfied. Immediately, the man said angrily, "Damn it, you actually dared to dodge. If I don't dodge, the pig's trotter is going to touch me." Lung Ruoxue glanced at the man who was trying to take advantage of her and said indifferently. When Uncle Long and the others heard this, they couldn't help but burst into laughter. Pig trotters? It was quite an image. The man in front of him was slightly chubby, and his claws were chubby. He looked like a pig waiting to be slaughtered. In the eyes of Uncle Long and the others, he was already a dead pig. He dared to flirt with their shue. Dying once would be letting him off easy. However, this place was the 9 Netherworld prison. They were very curious about where this guy could go. Thinking up to this point, everyone's gazes couldn't help but float to the demon's body, wanted to see what kind of reaction he would have. However, to their disappointment, they actually didn't see anything because the dignified mistress of the dark world actually had a calm expression on her face. Could this be the legendary calm before the storm? It definitely was. They didn't think that the evildoer would let go of the guy who teased Shui. With this thought in mind, no one planned to step forward so easily. They had to give this chance to the man who saved the beauty. They just had to wait for a good show. At this time, the perverted man did not realize that danger was coming. He saw that only the beauty seemed to have the intention to resist, and the others did not even dare to make sound. Suddenly, the perverted man's momentum was greatly boosted. This was the rhythm of their fear. Furthermore, he didn't realize that the pig's feet Lung Ruashue was referring to was his claws. He asked with a puzzled look, "Where did this pig trotter come from that dares to touch my woman? I'm definitely going to chop off that pig trotter." When everyone heard this, they fell silent. They didn't object to you wanting to stomp your pig trotters, but how did their Shui become your woman? Where do you place the Dark Lord? As they secretly complained in their hearts, Uncle Long and the others once again turned their eyes to the demon without changing their expressions. Still no reaction? Still so calm? Ugh, I'm finished. This is a big deal. This man, who would usually fight with Shui and his beasts for favor, actually had no reaction to a scoundrel who was teasing his woman. This was clearly the rhythm of wanting to make a big deal out of it. Tofu was not that delicious. Uncle Long and the others glanced sympathetically at the wretched man who didn't understand the situation and continued to pretend to be invisible. At this moment, Lung Ruashue spoke again. "Then chop off the pig's trotters." As Lung Ruashue's voice fell, a dark light flashed and disappeared. Following that, a howl that sounded like a pig being slaughtered rang out, causing Uncle Long and the others to tremble in fear. The sound was too horrifying, but what was even more tragic was the wretched man's hands. At this time, both his hands had been cut off from his wrists. The wounds were smooth and neat. One look, and one could tell that the cut was done with great skill. There was not even a bit of hair. The dark red liquid spurted out from the wound on his wrist, shocking the people nearby, so that they jumped a few meters away to avoid being affected. The wretched-looking man, who was in unbearable pain, quickly passed out. "Thanks, young master." At this moment, a few servants ran over from the distance and helped the vulgar man up in a flurry. One of them glared at Uncle Long and the others with a resentful expression and said, "Just you wait. You're going to be in big trouble." After shouting, the servants carried the unconscious man and quickly left the dangerous place without daring to stay. Of course, they did not forget to pick up the man's hands before they left. As he watched them leave, Feng Chuan blinked and repeated, "We're going to be in big trouble. What should we do now? Should we stay here and wait for them?" With so many people around, Feng Chuan didn't think they needed to be afraid of them. However, he didn't expect that the demonic man would attack so quickly. They didn't even have time to react. They only saw a ray of light, and that lecher's hands were cut off. He was really ruthless. While sighing, Feng Chuan was also a little excited. For so many years in the Feng clan, their lives had been quite dull. Now that they were in Nine Nether prison, their lives must be a lot more exciting, right? Just think about it. They had just arrived at the first city, and they had already provoked a guy who might have a powerful background. How could this not make them feel excited? Feng Chuan could clearly feel that a liquid called hot blood was already boiling in his body, and it was roaring to fight. He had not felt this way for many years. Just thinking about it made him excited. However, Feng Chuan's words were unanimously despised by everyone. "Why should we wait for them?" Uncle Long asked directly. "So what if he's a big shot? Why do we have to stand here and wait for him to come back?" "Oomph. It's fine if they want us to be unlucky, but let them take the initiative to find us. Let's find an inn to stay in. We won't be leaving for the time being." Hearing this, Feng Chuan couldn't help but wipe the cold sweat on his forehead. He thought to himself, this Uncle Long's aura is so strong. Could this be the legendary saying, "A powerful dragon should suppress a snake in its territory"? Little Phoenix, don't be afraid. We also have people backing us. At this time, Dongfeng Lin also patted Feng Chuan's shoulder and consoled him. "I'm not afraid. I just want to test the strength of the people in the 9th nether prison. Feng Chuan said the truth. To put it bluntly, he wanted to fight. Let's find an inn to stay in first. Suddenly, the demon spoke, and everyone's mood instantly brightened when they heard this. They didn't expect to see such a show when they just arrived at the 9 nether prison. Everyone was quite satisfied with this arrangement. Lung Ruashua broke out in a cold sweat when she saw how they looked as if they wanted the world to be in chaos. However, it wasn't that she was afraid that Uncle Long and the others would be at a disadvantage, or that she felt that she and the others couldn't defeat them. She just felt that this was the territory of the evildoers. Was it appropriate for them to fight with the local tyrants the moment they arrived? Seeing through Xue Er's thoughts, the evildoer immediately pulled Xue Er into his arms and said with a faint smile, "It's okay. Some people do need to be taught a lesson." In other words, he didn't care what kind of trouble Uncle Long and the others would cause in his territory. When Lung Ruashua heard this, she no longer felt conflicted. After that, everyone began to look for an inn in the city with excitement. Who knew that even after searching the entire 9 capital city, Lung Ruashua and the rest could not find a single inn that was willing to take them in. He asked many inns and was told that there were no empty rooms. Lung Ruashua and the rest were rather surprised. The 9 capital city was cold and cheerless, and it didn't look like an inn that was full of people. However, since the inn manager had said so, they couldn't say anything. When they asked about the last inn in the 9 capital city, they were also told that there were no empty rooms. Just as they were about to leave, they heard the inn manager asking another guest who had just entered the inn what room he needed. After the guest told them his request, the manager immediately arranged the room for him. Chapter 2482. Tofu isn't that delicious, too. When Lung Ruashua and the rest saw this scene, what else was there for them to not understand? The furious Uncle Long rushed forward and grabbed the inn manager by his collar. He dragged him out from the front desk and questioned him fiercely. "Aren't there no more rooms? What's up with that person just now?" "Why, yes, there are no more rooms." The inn manager trembled as he said, "How can this person be so barbaric? Then where did you get the room from? Don't tell me you built it on the spot." Uncle Long roared like a fiend. That room." The inn manager was so frightened by his fierceness that he couldn't even speak properly. He stammered for a long time and couldn't say a complete sentence. Uncle Long lost his patience and continued to shout, "Where did you get that room? Just say it. If you don't explain it to me today, it'll smash your shop. You don't mess around. My boss isn't someone to be trifled with." After being threatened by Uncle Long, the innkeeper was finally able to say a complete sentence and even brought up his backer. However, Uncle Long was not afraid of the boss that he said was not to be trifled with. "Your boss isn't to be trifled with, but do you think we're to be trifled with?" Uncle Long roared. "I'm telling you, old man, you'd better quickly arrange a room for us. Otherwise, it'll really smash your shop. You're really not afraid of death?" The manager was so angry that he couldn't say anything. He had never thought that these gods would not only dare to come to the 9 nether prison, but also threaten him. These gods really didn't want to live anymore. The manager was very worried. Although he had not lived for a long time, he had never heard of a god who dared to be so arrogant in a 9 nether prison. This was a heaven-defying move. No, he had to report this to his family. A deity had come to the 9 nether prison. This was definitely a big deal. After making up his mind, the inn manager's attitude suddenly changed. He didn't give Uncle Long a chance to speak and said softly, "I know you guys are not afraid of death, but I am. Your Excellencies, please don't make things difficult for me. I'm just a small fry. I can't do much." Hearing this, Uncle Long could only swallow back the words "I'm not afraid" that he was about to say. Then, he looked at the inn manager with a face full of question marks. What the hell was this old man doing? He had just used his boss to threaten him. Why did his attitude soften in the blink of an eye? Uncle Long wouldn't naively think that it was his domineering aura that had intimidated this little old man. Oh, there must be a conspiracy. With this thought, Uncle Long smiled and patted the manager's shoulder. "Ha ha ha! Although you can't do much, You still have the right to arrange rooms for us. There is, but are you sure you want to live there? The innkeeper asked carefully. He didn't dare to say that he didn't have any more. Otherwise, this person might use some means to bully him. He was only a manager of a guest house and couldn't withstand a punch from someone else. The manager of the inn was quite tactful. Shopkeeper, of course we're staying. Do you think we're looking for inns all over the city for nothing better to do? Uncle Long said, pretending to be unhappy. Thanks, the inn manager smiled awkwardly. Of course, he knew that these people were looking for inn guests. Not only him, but all the inns in the 9 capital city knew. However, no one dared to accept them. Who asked them to hurt the son of the 9 capital city lord? At first, he didn't dare to accept them. However, if he didn't accept them, he was afraid of being beaten up. Besides, he had decided to report to the family head that a god had come to the 9 nether prison. Therefore, he had no choice but to keep them in the inn. At least, he had to try his best to make them stay without knowing the family head's intention. With this thought in mind, the inn manager became attentive and thoughtful again. Not only did he personally arrange rooms for them, but he also personally led them to their rooms. After bringing Lung Ruoshue and the rest to the door of the room, the innkeeper could not help but ask, "There are so many of you. Is one room really enough?" "Enough. Shopkeeper, don't disturb us if there's nothing important. We like peace and quiet," Uncle Long said in an unpleasant tone. "I know. Have a good rest, sirs. I won't disturb you any longer." Although the innkeeper said this, he didn't think much of it. Hurting the city lord's young master was equivalent to slapping the city lord's face. It would be strange if they stopped. The shopkeeper knew that these people were going to be in trouble, but he didn't dare to say it. After watching the innkeeper leave, Uncle Long and the others pushed open the door and walked in together. After entering the inn's room, Lung Ruoshue took out her portable house and the group entered it. Before they could enter the garden, a snow-white figure turned into a ray of light and flew towards Lung Ruoshue, landing in her arms. "Girl, I missed you so much." Song Yu glared at evildoer resentfully before speaking to Lung Ruoshue pitifully. As everyone listened to a certain beast acting coquettishly, black lines appeared on their foreheads. They thought to themselves, "How long has it been since we separated?" A certain beast was teasing his woman in front of him. Could they say that he was looking for death? As expected, evildoer grabbed the snow-white ball of fluff in Lung Ruoshue's arms and threw it far away. Song immediately drew a perfect arc and was thrown far away. After evildoer threw Song out, he said to Lung Ruoshue in a serious tone, Ignore that fellow. I told you not to bring it along, but it insisted on following us. Why didn't you bring me along? Why didn't you bring me along?" As soon as the demon finished speaking, an angry voice immediately rang in everyone's ears. When everyone heard this, they all turned their heads in unison. There might be a fight later, so it was better for them to pretend to be invisible. You are the God Protection Tower of the divinity, so of course you can only stay in the divinity. If the laws of heaven and earth find out that you've come to the 9 nether prison, they might punish you. The demon laughed evilly. Back then, he had wanted to use this reason to get rid of this third wheel. Unfortunately, he didn't care and insisted on following them. As such, he could only request that unless it was absolutely necessary, he wasn't allowed to leave Shui-er's house. Otherwise, he wouldn't bring him along. Facing this kind of threat, there was no other way than a compromise. However, Song was a narrow-minded person and naturally bore a grudge in his heart. Now that Azure heard what evildoer said, he was filled with hatred. "You are the master of the dark world? Aren't you going to stay in the divine realm?" Azure said through gritted teeth. "That's different. I've already reincarnated many times, and am a human cultivator now. Naturally, I can go anywhere I want." This was also the main reason why he had maintained his strength at the deity emperor level. Once he advanced to the reverent god level, his massive dark aura might be detected by some laws in the divine world. At that time, the meddlesome laws of the heaven and earth might expel him from the divine world. He did not want to leave Chapter 2483. Tofu isn't that delicious. 3. If you can do it, I can too. Azure Fire roared. Oh, really? Have you forgotten the rules of heaven and earth? The demon reminded him with a smile. Don't mention that damn thing to me. It can't control me. Azure said hatefully. It might not be able to kill you, but it can punish you. When the demon thought of this, he was filled with hatred. This was because the laws of heaven and earth were simply too biased. They actually looked down on his darkness attribute. When he heard this, Azure immediately wilted. It was undeniable that the demonic man was right. The rules of heaven and earth had the power to punish, and that guy liked to talk about rules. He would not allow them to do this and that. It was so annoying. Seeing that Song had suddenly wilted, Long Ruashu gently touched its soft fur and coaxed, "Don't worry, we won't let the laws of the heaven and earth discover us." That's right. He'll be careful. Song received Lung Ruakshu's encouragement, and his aura suddenly rose. Seeing that Song had pulled himself together, Lung Ruashue was naturally relieved. Uncle Long and the others were relieved when they saw that the two of them didn't fight. They took the initiative to change the topic and talked about a certain perverted man. I wonder what that fellow will do to us. Uncle Long and the others asked curiously. I'm looking forward to it was written all over their faces. Lung Ruashue saw how excited they were and really didn't know what to say. However, she wasn't worried at all that someone would come to seek revenge. At the same time, the injured man had already been carried back to the city lord's mansion. After the city lord learned of this matter, he was naturally furious. The city lord had never dreamed that someone would actually dare to injure his own child in the 9 capital city. Although the injured child was not the one he doted on the most, he was still his son. As the saying goes, you have to look at the master before you hit the dog. No man would be able to stand being slapped in public on his territory, right? In the room of the vulgar man, a beautiful lady sat by the bed, watching her unconscious child cry. Her beautiful face with tears was extremely alluring. However, the middle-aged man who was pacing back and forth in the room was not in the mood to appreciate the bow tie's pitiful state. He was extremely annoyed. Don't cry. Suddenly, the middle-aged man roared in anger. The beautiful lady was shocked by the roar. She looked up at the middle-aged man with a bitter expression and said, City Lord, I know you don't like Chung-er, but he's still your child. Are you just going to watch as he gets injured by someone and do nothing? If you don't care, then I'll have to go and beg my brother. Hearing that the woman was going to look for her brother, the man became even more irritated. He grabbed his hair and glared at her. You're not allowed to look for your brother over such a small matter. Then City Lord has to think of a way to avenge Chung-er, the woman requested. I know. They'll take revenge for Chung. The middle-aged man promised. When? City Lord, you better give me some time. The woman pressed on. After living with this man for so many years, she knew her husband's timid character all too well, so she had to force him to make a decision. How can I give you time for such a thing? I have to investigate the background of those people first, right? You know, those people dared to hurt my son in the 9 capital city. Do you think they don't have a backer? If the other party is someone we can't afford to offend, then even if I wanted to avenge Chung, I wouldn't be able to. The middle-aged man said with a headache. It had to be said that he was still very rational. Although he was quite angry that he was slapped in the face, at least he did not lose his mind and immediately settle the score with those people. From the news that he had received, he knew that those people had come from the divine realm, so he did not dare to act rashly. Thanks if the people of the divine realm didn't have something to rely on, would they dare to come to the 9 nether prison? What's the difference between that and death? More importantly, the deities who dared to come to the 9 nether prison were definitely not ordinary people. Thus, he had to be even more careful. Otherwise, his many years of management would be destroyed. Unfortunately, the woman in front of him couldn't understand his thoughts at all. After the woman heard his words, she said disapprovingly, What's there to be afraid of with someone backing you? Don't we have any backing? City Lord, you can rest assured and take revenge for our son. If you need anything, my brother will support you. Don't forget that my brother is the Castellan of Jiahua City, one of the 10 main cities in the 9 Nether prison. I don't believe that no matter how powerful their background is, it can't be more powerful than mine. The woman's words were quite confident. She had always been proud of her identity. Moreover, it was also because of this identity that she was able to firmly grasp the man in front of her in her hands. Although she was not the only woman of her husband, it was undeniable that she had the highest status among all the women. There were many times when even he, her husband, did not dare to show her any attitude. Hearing the woman's words, the middle-aged man really hesitated. After all, the mayor of Jihua City had a high status. It should be known that in 9 Nether prison, except for 9 Nether City, which was a capital city, the other 10 main cities were not ranked in order. The only difference was the strength of the city lord. If the city lord of a city was powerful, the corresponding city status would be at the top of the 10 main cities. However, to be able to become the city lord of the 10 main cities, which one of them was not a powerful expert. Therefore, most of the time, their strength was equal. It would be even more difficult for the 10 major cities to decide who was better. Because of this, the 10 main cities of 9 Nether prison could be compared with each other. The 9 capital cities' status in 9 Nether prison was naturally not comparable to Jihua City. However, he didn't know if the lord of Jihua City, his wife's brother, would be willing to stand up for his son. He knew very well in his heart that his wife's older brother did not like his incompetent son at all. He had even warned him more than once not to let go of Chang'er, and if anything happened to Chang'er, he should not look for him. His wife's older brother had clearly stated that he would not interfere in Chang'er's matters. Unfortunately, his wife was not clear about these things at all, and he did not dare to tell this woman who was not clear-headed. When he thought of this, his previous hesitation disappeared without a trace, because he really did not dare to risk his family's future. With such a noble relative, he naturally had to make good use of him. He absolutely could not anger his big backer because of a prodigal son. Madam, your words are not without reason. However, this matter must be considered at length. So, you should be patient. I will definitely give you an explanation for this matter. After thinking about it, the middle-aged man decided to comfort the woman who had lost her mind first, in case she did something irreparable and made it impossible to clean up. After saying this, he didn't wait for the woman's response and immediately turned to leave. The woman trembled in anger when she saw his irresponsible behavior. How detestable! It was really too detestable. It was fine that he was usually indifferent to her son, but when such a big thing happened to his son, as a father, he actually didn't care about it. Was this reasonable? The more the beautiful woman thought about it, the angrier she became. She called her trusted servant and whispered a few words to her. The servant turned and left the city lord's mansion. Not long after, several more teams left the 9 capital city and rushed in all directions. At this moment, Lung Ruoxue and the others were still unaware that someone had already spread the news of their arrival at the 9 Nether prison to many people. In an instant, many powerful clans in the 9 Nether prison knew that a deity had arrived. Not long after the news spread, the entire 9 Nether prison was in an uproar. However, Lung Ruoxue and the rest were completely clueless about this. Furthermore, they had already been staying in the inn's room for a few days. It wasn't that they didn't want to go out, but the gazes of the people of the 9 capital city were too intense. After secretly observing Lung Ruoxue and the rest for a few days, and seeing that no one from the city lord's residence came to find trouble with them, they were relieved and boldly coveted Lung Ruoxue and the rest. However, due to the fear of a certain person's power, many people only dared to secretly covet them. Even so, it was enough to drive them crazy, especially the people who were drooling at them. There was a trend of increasing, and the number was doubling every day. Who would be the target of so many eyes? Who could stand it? Uncle Long and the others went crazy. No one was willing to go out and be seen as a rare species. They were drooling. Lung Ruoxue wanted to go out for a walk, but every time she brought up this idea, she would receive all sorts of disdain and resentment from Uncle Long and the others. Uncle Long even asked Lung Ruoxua directly, do you have a grudge against the Nine Nether prison? He believed that as long as went out, there would definitely be a murder in the Nine capital city, because Er's face clearly said, hurry up and find trouble with me. These few words. The moment Lung Ruoxua heard this, she did not dare to bring up the idea of going out for a walk even if she wanted to. In the end, the evildoer couldn't bear to let her go and told Lung Ruoxua that if she wanted to go out, she could do so. There was nothing to be afraid of. Hearing this, Lung Ruoxua was very touched and immediately pulled the evildoer out of the room. Based on Lung Ruoxua's thoughts, she couldn't possibly hide in her room like an ostrich, right? It's just being watched and drooling. What's the big deal? Moreover, other than watching from afar, there were not many who dared to come forward and cause trouble. Otherwise, she would definitely not be the unlucky one. Chapter 2484. Taking action upon hearing the news. 1. After they left the room, Lung Ruoxua and the demon did not plan to go far. They went downstairs and headed straight to the dining room. Not long after they went downstairs, the door of the room was open again. Uncle Long and the others came out unwillingly. It wasn't that they were eager to go out for a walk, but that refused to let them into the house. This tragic fact was all because of Uncle Long's words, do you have a grudge against the Nine Nether prison? What happened after that, to put it bluntly, was Er's petty revenge. However, they weren't afraid of being alone in the room. They mainly didn't want to be looked down upon. Hence, when they saw Lung Ruoxua and the demon walking out of the room, the crowd could not stand it any longer. Where are and the others? How did he disappear so quickly? Uncle Long was shocked. He was nervous. They had been left in the inn in a foreign place. What if the natives came to their door with hunger? Should they fight or not? If they fought, they would definitely anger all the natives of the Nine Nether prison. However, if they didn't fight, they would be in trouble since they didn't have the support of any demon. Thinking of this, Uncle Long was in a dilemma. Boo-hoo. Was a bad girl. She was actually not letting them into the mobile home. This was definitely a huge nightmare for everyone. Not only that, but even the first elder's mobile home had been banned from use. All of this was because he had said that Lung Ruoxua was suspected to be a troublesome person. Uncle Long felt really wronged. He wasn't the only one who had such thoughts, but he was the only one who said it. What are you still standing there for? Hurry up and chase. The master of the Ning family quickly said. Oh, when everyone heard this, they hurried down the stairs. The innkeeper, who was standing guard at the front desk of the hall on the first floor, was shocked at first when he saw their flustered formation. He couldn't help but mutter in his heart, "It's been calm these days, and no one from the city lord's mansion has come to find us. Why are these people so flustered? Everyone, are you all going out?" The shopkeeper went up to him and asked with a smile. The news from the main family yesterday told him to keep a close eye on these people. The main family would send more people over soon, so he didn't dare to lose them. "Shopkeeper, did you see a man and a woman come down?" The master of the Ning family saw that the shopkeeper took the initiative to talk, so he asked casually, "You are asking about the man and woman who were with you?" The innkeeper blinked his eyes and thought to himself, "I've really seen it before." The two men went straight to the restaurant after asking him where it was. "Right. Have you seen it before?" The master of the Ning family asked. They went to the restaurant. The shopkeeper said honestly. "Where's the restaurant?" Uncle Long asked. "Just go through that door." The good-tempered shopkeeper pointed at a carved wooden door and said. Before he could even catch his breath, the group of people in front of him swarmed forward and ran toward the restaurant. Thanks, the shopkeeper shook his head as he watched, and couldn't help but sigh inwardly. He didn't expect the people of the immortal realm to be so restless. However, Uncle Long and the others were not in the mood to know what he was thinking. When they arrived at the dining room, they saw Lung Ruoxua and the demon sitting at a table by the window. They were drinking tea and eating snacks leisurely. The crowd followed the master of the Ning family and Uncle Long to the table. Lung Ruoxue had already guessed that they would follow her. She smiled calmly and said, "You're here, sit." Upon hearing this, Master Ning, Uncle Long, and the rest sat down in the empty seats beside Lung Ruoxue and the demon. The rest of them also found their own tables and sat down. "Shui, why did you find a table by the window?" Through the open window, Uncle Long could see the situation on the other side of the street. It happened to be a restaurant. At this time, the window of the restaurant was full of people. Many pairs of red eyes were staring at them. This fact made Uncle Long feel a little uncomfortable. "The view is good by the window, and we can watch the fun." Lung Ruoxue laughed. That's not good." Uncle Long couldn't help but wipe the cold sweat off his forehead. This made it easier for the people outside to watch. With their presence, the business of the restaurant opposite was full every day. Even so, there were still many people waiting in a long line outside the restaurant. They naturally hoped to use the restaurant opposite to have the opportunity to admire their every move. Fortunately, the management of the inn was quite strict, so not all of those talents swarmed into the inn. The restaurant was also not open to the public, and only the guests who stayed in the inn could use it. Otherwise, they would be depressed to death. But what Uncle Long didn't know was that ever since they had moved into this inn, the business of this inn had been several times better than usual. Every day, the shopkeeper would smile from ear to ear and naturally wouldn't let anyone disturb them easily. But if they left this small piece of land, it would be out of his control. "Uncle Long, calm down." Lung Ruoxue looked at Uncle Long's gloomy expression and laughed evilly. She was in a good mood. "All right, I'm calm." Uncle Long was very worried, but then he thought, no matter what, I'm still a reverent god in the divine world. It doesn't make sense for me to become a steamed bun in the Nine Nether prison. He believed that no matter how different this place was from the immortal realm, his strength would definitely be ranked among the top here. The only thing he couldn't stand was that those people were treating them as prey. This fact would definitely drive everyone crazy. After adjusting his state of mind, Uncle Long pretended to be calm as he picked up the teacup in front of him and took a sip. Then, he widened his eyes in surprise and said, "This tea is actually not that different from the Divine Realm's tea." Of course there's no difference, because this tea was obtained from the Divine Realm. The demon said indifferently. "Arg, really?" Uncle Long couldn't help but widen his eyes in disbelief. Although Nine Nether prison and the Divine World belong to two different spaces, our two worlds have always been trading with each other. Nine Nether prison is rich in mineral resources, but food is relatively scarce. Therefore, we usually exchange some food, pills, and other supplies of the Divine World to improve the lives of the indigenous nobles. This trade has always been carried out directly by the City Lord Mansion of Nine Nether City and the Divine Lord Mansion, so it's not strange that you don't know about it. The demon explained. "I see." Uncle Long and the others nodded. At this moment, Lung Ruoxue asked curiously, "Demon, how did the people here know that we came from the Divine World the moment they saw us?" She had been thinking about this question for a few days, but she couldn't figure it out. Hearing Lung Ruoxue's question, the demon couldn't help but chuckle. He thought that Shui would have asked him the moment she found out about this. He didn't expect Shui to actually endure it for several days. Chapter 2485. Taking action upon hearing the news. 2. Seeing that the demon was actually laughing at her, Lung Ruoxue deliberately put on a straight face and snorted coldly. She even turned her head arrogantly to avoid looking at him. The moment the demon saw this, he quickly said seriously, "Shui, do you know how the beasts feel when they discover a treasure? You mean, in the eyes of the people of Netherworld Prison, we are the same as natural treasures?" Lung Ruoxue blinked her beautiful eyes as she asked. "More or less. The cultivators of the 9 underworlds are all called meditation here. Besides the dark attribute, the meditation cultivators don't use divine power, but dark power. Here, the Emperor of the Dead is equivalent to the Divine Emperor of the Divine World, and the revered Ming is equivalent to the revered God of the Divine World. However, The meditation cultivators are better at close combat. Their bodies are stronger than the gods, and their personalities are more brutal and bloodthirsty. They like to fight with each other. But at the same time, the Nine Nether Prison has a more perfect interpretation of the strong being respected. The evil ghosts we met when we first arrived here were only the lowest level cultivators, and some of them were not even cultivators. They have the lowest status in the Nine Nether Prison, and they are usually only allowed to move around in the outer area of the prison. Those who are allowed to enter the city, other than the natives, are required to be a dark practitioner even if they are the weakest. The demon patiently explained the most basic requirements for cultivators in the Nine Nether Prison, and everyone suddenly understood. Lung Ruashue could not help but heave a sigh of relief when she finally found some clues. However, what she didn't expect was that this place was quite similar to the immortal realm. It was just that the meditating cultivators here were not living people except for the natives. Evildoer, do fights happen often here? Lung Ruashue suddenly asked. Of course, this isn't the immortal realm, so there aren't that many rules. There's also an unwritten rule here that if someone dies because they're not as good as their opponent, their clan usually won't stand up for them. However, most of the clans have a tacit understanding, so you don't have to worry about the revenge of the clan after killing a blind guy. This kind of thing rarely happens in the Nine Nether Prison. The demon laughed. No wonder the 9 capital cities' city lord's mansion hasn't made any movements. It seems like we've escaped a calamity? Lung Ruashue teased. Not necessarily. Maybe they're brewing a bigger conspiracy. The master of the Ning family was not optimistic about the city lord here. If his son had been injured outside, he would have ignored it, but this was his own territory. If he didn't even care about his son's injury, how useless would he be as a father? This was a direct slap in the face. If it was him, he would definitely not be able to bear it. No matter what kind of scheme the 9 capital cities' city lord is brewing, you don't have to be afraid. I'm here, the demon said confidently. In his own territory, if he couldn't even protect a few people, then the one who would be vexed would be him, the mistress of the dark world. However, before the other party made any big moves, he didn't intend to make a move. After all, he had already punished the guy who had designs on Shui. He couldn't take the initiative to go to their door and kill them all. When Uncle Long and the others heard this, they were naturally relieved and made up their minds. If the other party was really that ignorant, then they could not blame them for being ruthless, especially after hearing the demon tell them the strength levels of the cultivators here. They were even less afraid. After all, they had a few reverent gods here. He couldn't be underestimated. Moreover, as they gained a better understanding of the Nine Nether Prison, they felt that there was really nothing to be afraid of here. Apart from the burning gazes and the drooling looks of the people here, there was really nothing to be afraid of. Although the weather here was not as good as the Divine Realm, it was gloomy all day as if it would rain at any time. The food was not as exquisite as the Divine Realm, and the people were not as beautiful as the people of the Divine Realm. Other than that, there was not much difference between this place and the Divine Realm. After a few days, they had slowly adapted to the climate here. However, it didn't dare to cultivate in the Nine Nether Prison. The spiritual chi here was 100 times more brutal than in the divine world, and they couldn't bear it. Thanks Lung Ruashue and the others sat in the dining room, chatting and not rushing back to their rooms. This time, they had completely satisfied the desire of some Nether Prison people to peep, and more people came to watch. However, at the same time, everyone's mental endurance had also been trained, and their hearts had obviously become much stronger. He was much calmer. After a long time, seeing that everyone was almost done chatting, Feng Chuan suddenly sneaked to Lung Ruakshu's side and asked in a low voice, Shui, when are we leaving this place? It's not good to keep waiting for the city lord's mansion to come and find trouble with us, right? Do you have any good ideas? When Lung Ruashue heard this, she couldn't help but raise her brows and ask, why don't we send someone to deliver a letter to the city lord's mansion and ask them when they will come to settle the score with us? Once they know the time, we can make preparations in advance. Otherwise, If we keep waiting like this, it's purely a waste of our own time. What do you think? Feng Chuan hesitated, but in the end, he still spoke his mind. But the moment he said this, Feng Chuan immediately lowered his head in embarrassment. He didn't dare to look at Lung Ruoxua's face. He was afraid that this little girl would be angry. When Lung Ruoxua heard this, she didn't respond for a long time. Feng Chuan started to feel more and more uneasy. However, Uncle Long and the others were speechless when they heard Feng Chuan's words. There were really people who weren't afraid of making a big deal out of it, sending a letter to the city lord's mansion to ask when they would come to settle the score with him. Why did this sound like a provocation? AI. In just a few days, Feng Chuan had become bad. She vaguely remembered that Feng Chuan was still a pure phoenix, although they had only met Feng Chuan once when they were in the Phoenix territory. But they never thought that Feng Chuan, who had been so timid when he first came in Nine Nether prison, would come up with such an idea today. Was this the so-called one who is marked by the company of Vermilion and one who is marked by company of ink? But Uncle Long and the others would never admit that they were the ones who stained Feng Chuan's reputation. This guy was supposed to be black. It must be like this. After Uncle Long and the others finished the appraisal, they all wanted to keep a distance from Feng Chuan to avoid being misunderstood. At this moment, Lung Ruoxua, who had been silent for a long time, finally spoke. That's a good idea. We can't always stay in the Nine capital city and wait for them to come and find trouble with us. However, who's going to deliver the letter? When Feng Chuan heard that Lung Ruoxua had actually agreed to his suggestion, he was so excited that he quickly raised his head and said without hesitation, "You can ask the manager of the inn to send it to you. Boss, please have someone go there." Lung Ruoxua nodded in agreement, then gave Feng Chuan a look that said he was a promising young man. When Lung Ruoxua looked at the inn manager with a smile and said that she had a favor to ask of him, the inn manager still adhered to the principle that the customer was God and agreed readily. However, when he heard that the other party wanted him to send someone to the city lord's residence to deliver a letter, he could no longer remain calm. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.